All right, here we are again. I
Yeah.
don't know if this is just going to be like our thing from now on. Like, who knows? League 6. We come round to the Double Shine and Scritic podcast, but here we are, episode. Would this be 4?
I think this is 4. Yeah, we've done I think 3 by now. I don't know. It was a little hazy there at the end when everything was in
Yeah.
motion, but I
Yeah.
had a little bit of time now, probably a lot of thoughts to gather, and
Yeah.
probably a good time to have a nice little chat, huh?
Yeah. So, what are we? At the time of recording this, we are 4 weeks into the league. Am I right? Or
Yes.
just shy of 4 weeks?
No, I think we just started week 5.
Right. So yeah, we're a good way through the league, and I think both of us. I mean, I've tuned into your live streams, you've tuned into mine. I think we've both seen that we've both been very busy, played on multiple accounts. So I suppose in this video, we're going to be going through just like our general thoughts, what we've been up to. But I think what's going to be really interesting to see your take on is going to be what we both think is the best and worst relic, what we think is the most fun and least fun combat style, and again, on a similar kind of thought, what we think is the most fun and least fun region as well. So that's going to be really interesting. But I don't want to rush ahead. How have you been? How have you found the league? What do you think to Leagues 5?
Dude, it's been great. It's been awesome. What can I say? Like, it's been so much fun. It's been half the reason why I think this chat got like delayed like 3
Yeah.
weeks because, oh my God, I feel like
My
I've just
bad
been
as well,
so
dude. We've
busy
both been
playing.
so busy with it.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I was like, oh yeah, I'll have like a nice scheduled thing, and then like leagues hits, and then it's like, oh, a month of your time just disappears and stuff like that, and then also like
Yeah.
everything going on in real life, and then you're like, okay, fine, not gonna be, I'm not too busy now, and then you're like, all right, a second account has just started, and now you're like right back in the mix of things, and that man, that has just been eating up all my time. But I've been overall, I feel like I've just been enjoying it a lot. It's actually
Yeah.
crazy that you mentioned it's like week 5, and I'm still like just having a blast and trying a lot of different
Yeah.
stuff out. And in a lot of ways, I'm kind of happy that we're having this chat now because I think there's been a bit more time to like try out different things with like, alt accounts and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I actually feel like I got to experience because I really do feel like this year in particular, what kind of stands out to me is just how much diversity there is. And that's why I think this like gonna be a pretty fun to just talk about our experiences.
Yeah. And like, I guess the first question I wanted to ask you on that was we've both been playing multiple accounts, but the $1 million question that I'm sure someone will ask you, has asked you, or will ask you if they haven't already, have you got Dragon Cup yet on one account?
Oh, so I don't want to talk about that. No, okay. I am very, very close. My main, I think I end up getting like 58,000 points in like the first 2.5 weeks or so. And I got to a point where I was like, I felt like the chase to dragon was starting to kind of like, I don't want to say it was like exhausting and stuff like that, but
It
I just
does
really
wear
wanted
you
to
down,
start.
man. It does. Like, you can't sugarcoat it. It does wear you down when that's
Yeah.
all you're focused on.
And I think
Yeah.
like, I just kind of realized that like, I was starting to become, I think, more focused on the grind to dragon than actually like enjoying the game. So like,
Yeah.
and right now, like I'm gonna hit dragon on my main. It's gonna happen by the end of the season for sure. I'm like 1,000 points away, but it's more like I just want to go play an alt, so I want to go play an alt. That alt is almost rune rank, but it's sitting at like 43,000. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll probably get rune on that as well. But now I'm onto something. Oh, sorry. Now I'm on something else, and like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like for me, I'm not like in any rush to hit dragon. Originally, I was trying to aim for like top 100 dragon, top 200 dragon, and that just I could not keep up. People are just gaming way too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. What about you? How's your? Because I know you've definitely played more than one account as well, right?
Yeah, so I've played on 3 accounts. I've been playing secretly on a 4th account, but that's been like a no pressure off stream, just have fun and mess around account. So I've been playing on about 4 accounts. Similarly to you, I think when you combine all the points together that I've got across all these accounts, I could have had Dragon Trophy almost twice over by now. But for me, and it's really interesting that we're talking about this first, because I was just talking about it on stream today, is that for some people, part of the fun in leagues is chasing that dragon trophy and having that almost like sort of sense of entitlement, not entitlement, sorry, wrong word, achievement. And to kind of like show it off and be like, hey, look, I got dragon trophy. Look, I've accomplished this. That's great. And then for others, and this is definitely the category I sit in, For me, it's about looking at the opportunities there is to have fun in different ways in leagues, and then just doing that on as many accounts as possible. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I would love to get Dragon Trophy. I just can't. I can't even fathom at this point. I'm way further away than you are. I can't even fathom at this point how many points I need to start locking down per day to get Dragon Cup at this point. I'm just not going to stress myself out about it. I'm just going to try and have fun.
Yeah, I think like for me actually, I had like a kind of similar thing in mind when like around like week 2 or so, because I kind of realized on my very first run through is that my regions weren't really the most like they weren't the best for like reaching dragon at like a super fast rate, or like
So
especially
what
my
regions did
relics
you
too.
pick on your first playthrough?
My first one was it was actually the rank 1 like meta regions of Zaya, Morytania, Fremennik. I didn't even know that that's what they
Nice.
were all picking, but then I started looking
Yeah.
at like all the leaderboards, and that is like the theoretical top points.
Yeah.
And there's a little spark in my mind that was like, oh, well, what if you go for every single task completed? And then, as I started getting closer and closer to like Dragon, I was like, man, I do not want to go complete every task. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Isn't that
sitting in
what
raids
Foe's
all
done?
day.
I might be wrong, but isn't that what Foe's doing? Completing
I
every
don't
single
think,
task?
I don't know if that, they might be completing every single task. I don't know about that. I know that their regions were not the like top possible task,
Right,
if that
right.
makes sense. Like theirs were a lot
Yeah.
more like faster and like geared towards, I think, like an early rush. Like I think they had regions like Wilderness, which is a very good region, but its
Mm.
tasks are relatively a lot easier than like Morytania, where you have to do like Theater of Blood a lot more. So
Yeah, can't relate. I think I got a scythe on my first hard mode top KC, and then I was kind of like, well, I've run it back with the guys like 4 or 5 times, but otherwise I'm done on this account. Like that's it. That was on an alt though, so I imagine when you're chasing something like Dragon Cup, having to spam those raids so many times can start to like, have a bit of a toll. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and I think for me, I also just started to think about like, would I ever like sacrifice my fun for like the competitive side of leagues? And like, I just don't really see myself ever doing that. So I
Hmm.
kind of had like I kind of had like a moment of like self-examination where I had to think and be like, okay, I need to like stop caring about like, going for like leaderboards or going for like top 100 or anything like that,
Yeah.
because like realistically, it's just not something I think I ultimately like care enough about to like
Yeah.
sacrifice fun. And then without like actually choosing like the better regions or without choosing better relics like optimizing for that, then I feel like it just
Yeah.
becomes like needlessly difficult. So yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's just not worth the thumbnail, man.
Yep.
There are some people that will chase the thumbnail, and there are some people you expect to have the thumbnail. You know, if I saw a solo mission upload and it didn't say I am rank 1, I would be disappointed. But I think outside of the people you probably expect to chase that, it's a lot. I think they probably don't even do it justice in their videos of how much work goes into chasing front page. You know?
And I
Um,
think this
yeah.
year, one thing that I think kind of made me feel a lot more validated with that is that I don't know if you saw, but like the actual like rank 1, like first person to complete every task with the most points, that all ended up coming down to just RNG stuff. It was somebody was
Oh,
chasing
really?
getting a magic seed from a bird nest. That was the last task that they
Oh,
needed, and they opened
really?
up 1,000 bird nests for it. Meanwhile, I think second
Wow.
place was stuck in Nightmare doing like 1,000 nightmares,
Oh,
going
that's a
for full
bad place to go
Inquisitor.
dry.
Yeah, and it's
That's a
like,
horrible place to go
and I
dry.
think pretty much all of them, like I think another person, a cold one, they've been stuck
Was
just
it
trying
the
to get a
kebab?
kebab. Yeah, that's all
The
they've been doing.
kebab? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like literally like top from I think on the top 10, like half of them are all just stuck doing RNG tasks at the end. And it's like I think they all kind of realize like, man, this sucks for us too. And like, at a certain point, it's like, man, okay, I'm not gonna go for that and stuff. And I think like in general, like I feel like people should
Yeah.
just play league as much as or play leagues as much as they enjoy it. And if like you're not enjoying it, then like and Dragon Cup is it's not that like not that cool. You know what I mean? Like if you're not
I
having fun, I feel like you should just
yeah.
do something else instead.
I'll make a confession right now. I have not got Dragon Cup on a single league, but I have played across at least 3 accounts on every single league. Every single one from leagues 1 to right through. And I really don't think I have it in me to chase Dragon Cup. This might be the first year that I do it if I can get the time to do it. But otherwise, I've always been of the mindset that as soon as things start to feel stale, without like quitting in a way, because I know that's something other people do, is like they just stop playing halfway through. Jump on another account. I know that's easier said than done, and you need to bond another account or pay for membership or whatever, but jumping on a fresh account and making different decisions can feel like starting again, like entirely. And I know, technically you are, but I mean, it can feel like a totally different experience. And I would do that every single league.
Yeah, to me, I think like, well, I feel like part of me is like I had the same situation. I had never gotten Dragon until last leagues, and then I hit Dragon for my first time, and I also was pretty competitive
Yeah.
in the last Deadman mode. So I think for me, all the like competitive stuff I got out of the way, and I was like, this isn't. I didn't even feel as good having gotten it and stuff. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I don't really have anything to like prove anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I would rather just make a new account because I've ultimately found that the progression from like tier 8 or like from tier 1 to tier 8 and even to around like Addy or Rune or so, I feel like to me that's like the best part of leagues where
Oh
you get
yeah.
to
No,
experience it.
100% agree.
And then it's like past that it's like okay, well now you're going to be like maxing and stuff like that and like
Yeah.
you don't have to do every like awful grind to get to dragon. Like you can definitely get dragon without it, but it's like I think there's so much more freedom and so much more variety up until rune, and then it starts to feel a little bit more restrictive, I would say.
And and like I say, it's interesting that we started the chat with this because it was something I was talking quite extensively about over the past few days. Is like, soon as you start to look at at the leagues in a competitive way for yourself or a leaderboard's perspective, I personally feel like it loses a lot of charm.
Mhm.
And I will say, if we can just talk about the task list quickly, this year, and I don't know if I'm just a bit jaded because I can't remember the task list from last year, but this year feels like there were so many tasks that could have been in that weren't, and instead were replaced by like, big XP milestones, like the amount of tasks, the amount of 50 mil tasks that you have to tick off if you want Dragon Cup almost feels mandatory. Like rather than chasing like an ultra rare drop or um like you say, getting really, really lucky with RNG, it feels like you were kind of shoehorned down, right? You need to max your account, get 50 million in all skills, otherwise you don't stand a chance of getting Dragon Cup. And I feel like that's a very narrow approach to achieving Dragon Cup. And sure, you might be able to avoid some of those tasks if you're going for Dragon, but not all of them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had the same experience my first account and then my second account was so different. And to
Oh,
me,
really?
I think it really comes down to what regions you selected. And that's why I feel like there is this big difference right now in how people are, I guess, feeling in that like I would say probably around like the 50K mark. Cause I would say again until around like 45K or so, like
Yeah.
there's so much for you to do that like really if you're struggling to find tasks, like just start
Yeah.
running down the list. But
Yeah.
to me, I think it's really a region thing, and like there's some regions, and we'll probably talk about this a little more when it comes to like best and worst region. But I've just found that like some regions, especially the raid regions, feel a lot more restrictive, and
Yeah.
others are so much more like you're just kind of handed free points just for like engaging with content, and I don't know, it just
Yeah.
feels really nice, and like I'm still shocked at how much different it felt compared to a more heavy raid region account versus one that had no raids and where I just felt like, okay, if I just run down this task, I could probably get this all, I could get almost all this stuff done in like, maybe like a couple days, honestly, because
Mm.
it's not really that bad outside of like, a couple like 300 kill tasks and stuff. So,
It's interesting you say that because on my first playthrough, I picked Zaya on my ranged account.
mhm.
And there came a point where I thought that the only way I was going to milk any more points out this region was pretty much like just completing every single task associated with the Chambers of Zarek. And it felt very like constricting. Do you know what I mean? It was either that or Wintertodd. Wintertodd, in my opinion, not the most fun when you're like just stuck there and it feels like you're in Wintertodd jail until 50 mil fire making and you tick off all the tasks there. Again, a little bit of RNG, getting the Pyromancer set and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, Zaya, for a region that I was kind of banking on and I was kind of selling propaganda on, being a great starter region, which it was, but then just being a good late game region too. I actually didn't feel that way in the end. I didn't feel like it was that good in the end. But I wonder how many other people felt that way about the other regions. I still, going back to our task list, I still wouldn't take back that we ranked Morytania #1. I still think that might have been the best raid region and just the best kind of like all round for a bit of like dipping into different content, you know?
Well, do you want to, I guess, because I know regions was the first thing on our list, or regions was actually the last thing on our list.
Well, we can
But
start with that. Why don't we start
why
with,
don't we just start with that?
let's
Because I feel
start
like
with
we're
that.
kind of naturally going into it anyways. Yeah. So do you want to talk
Yeah, why
about
don't we start
your
with that?
favorite region?
Well, it isn't Mauritania. So,
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
even though I would rank Mauritania as the #1 region, and the reason I would rank it as the #1 region is again just I feel like in previous leagues it wasn't a great early region, but this league it feels like the progression with masteries, giving you a bit of flexibility, made it chill start to finish. However, all right, if we're talking about this and we're being serious, my favorite region, the most fun, right? We're not talking about meta because
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
go
yeah.
on a
We're talking.
different
Well,
tangent.
I assume we're going to talk about like your favorite, not like what I think is strictly the best, because it's
No,
hard to. That's always going to be subjective to what your goals are.
yeah,
So I think it's
yeah, and what tasks you excel at completing as well, right?
right,
If we're
right.
talking meta, um, most fun region is Varlamore, and I think that's because #1, I think the Echo Soul fight actually became probably my favorite Echo fight in general. I wasn't sure how it was going to be because I don't know about you, but this league, I went into every Echo fight blind. I purposely, and it honestly, it was so difficult because I love watching other creators' content. I purposely avoided watching anyone else's content until I'd done that Echo boss because I know people are going to rush it, people are going to do it. And I just wanted the experience of jumping in blind and, kind of being taken aback and having to learn it the hard way. Um, and I did that with every single one. And Soul actually felt like for me, firstly, the one that wasn't much harder than the base version, but then also it was just fun. There was a lot going on. It felt really rewarding to get it down. And the other reasons I love Varlamore, obviously the sunlight build. I did a video on the Sunfire fanatic damage situation is out of control, I think is what I titled it. Like the highest damage burst, the highest DPS potential within like I guess a timed window in the entire of the leagues. Also the hunter element, the hunter's room element was kind of fun for a little while. But if I'm honest, the only reason I would rank Varlamore as the most fun region was because of kind of the whole meme setup behind the priest build, to be honest.
Yeah, no, listen,
And
I
that's
totally
what I'd
agree
say.
with you. I had to straight up, I think I gave out like 10, 24-hour timeouts for people trying to spoil the fight. They're like, oh, just
Oh,
do this.
really?
And I'm like, I need everybody to shut up right now. I don't care if I'm just like, please stop telling me how to do this fight. I'm going in blind. I've been avoiding
Yeah.
watching any content for 3 weeks. Like, I do not need you to tell me how to do this. I mean, I was getting so tilted,
Yeah.
but no, I'm with you where like to me, I think that blind experience of like going into fights is like the most important thing to me. And I guess in general, I'm with you. I think Varlamore is the best region. I was just blown
Really?
away. I think it was just straight up like best region in leagues, and
Really?
pretty much I think that's my biggest regret right now is not taking it the first time around because
Agree. Same
holy
here.
moly,
Same here.
Varlamore was just so fun. I think it's like to me, I think I've come to realize that it is just like the like trifecta of everything
Yeah.
I want in a region in leagues, and that's
Yeah.
like has like pretty good tasks, right? Most of them are fairly easy, I would say, to do. Like
Oh,
especially if you
yeah.
have any experience in Coliseum, I think you get a lot
Yeah.
from just doing Coliseum and like Echo Soul. It has good or like actually good content where
Yeah.
I
Enjoyable
enjoy
content.
doing pretty much all the content in there. I like doing a Moxliaddle. I mean, Huey is a little
I
bit
wouldn't go
weird,
that far. I
but
wouldn't go that far, but I would agree with you otherwise.
to be
A
fair,
Moxliato is
I'd
like,
never done a Moxliaddle before, so it's still
oh,
kind of
really?
fun for
Okay.
me to
Okay.
just go in there and like rack up like 25 kills, especially super early on when
Oh,
I had
okay.
like
Fair.
no gear or anything like that. Like because I went
Yeah.
there very
Yeah.
early with Varlamore, so that was pretty fun for me. Even Perilous Moons, I was really worried that Perilous Moons would feel like a slog, and went in there, pretty much got all my sets, and had no like. I
Yeah.
never felt like it was like a huge pain or anything like that. And then of course you have Vardorvis and Coliseum, which I think are like, just two of like the straight up best parts of RuneScape for me. And Echo Soul also gives you that experience of Soul without having to go through the Coliseum. So man, I don't know. I think. Oh, and then finally, the third part of the trifecta is it actually has good rewards too. Like it actually feels like you're rewarded. So, like, I mean, I thought the Sunlight Spear, like, man, that thing is so funny, and I loved using it. And every time, I was just blown away at how many like weird things I found with it because it does typeless damage. I don't know if you know this, but it like can one shot the skulls and wardens and Tombs of a Masket for like the desert. So I was doing 8-mans and I would just like slam down and just half the skulls would just delete. And my team was like, "What the heck? Like, who is carrying one side here while the rest of them are all like running back?" It was so fun. Like, I don't know. The Sunlight Spear is super cool. The bracers that like double your healing, like, man, those feel so rough to play the game without because it's just crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Varlamore's cool. And it's like a very self-contained region. It just has everything. It's got answers to everything. Like I don't know. I just absolutely loved Varlamore. It was so cool.
Yeah, I thought there's very few regions in Leagues 5 that I felt like if you got locked to this region, fair enough, maybe not for 8 weeks, because 8 weeks is a long ass time. But if you got locked to just this region, is there enough content there to keep you entertained for a while? There are very few regions I could pick. Probably maybe 2 or 3. Varlamore is definitely one of them. And actually, I felt that every piece of gear you can get within Varlamore is enough to carry you through early, mid, and late game. Like, you really don't need anything else outside of Varlamore. Fair enough if you're going for like a magical range build, you know, there's some upgrades to be made outside of that region. But even then, there are suitable options within. And yeah, no, the Sunlit Braces, while you mentioned that, I had quite a few people drop in on stream like, no way is this guy combo eating Swordfish and Karams right now. And I was like, yeah, bro, I don't think you understand. With the Sunlight Braces, that's like 80-something HP healed.
Yeah, it's like a full heal every time.
Yeah, I don't need to go over the top, you know? I don't have Wrangler on this on the account that I picked Varlamore. So, of course, I'm just going to go buy some cheap food. Sunlit Braces are going to make that incredible. And yeah, like the whole thing. I didn't even have all that much experience with Coliseum before going into it. And I felt like I learned a lot, even just from Leagues. So I know this is something we said in our build up to Leagues, but it really has now given me the confidence when I go back to the main game to maybe dig into the Coliseum a little bit and have a bit of fun with it. Because it's not something I've had the chance to try in the main game yet. Not properly anyway. So Varlamore was a lot of fun. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I feel like I felt like just slamming Echo Soul over and over and over again. Like, obviously it's a harder fight than regular Soul, but it's fundamentally, you know, it's still the same mechanics. And I felt like doing that, I started to sort of like, it's like I felt like there's like a moment where I felt like Neo in the Matrix. I'm like, oh
yeah,
I can just start
all
dodging
the numbers on the
like,
screen.
whoa, yeah, I just started figuring
all the numbers on the screen
like,
start lighting up, and that's how you can just read everything.
Yeah, and I was like doing like movements and stuff where usually I'm like so on edge during like when I'm doing my Coliseum runs, and I'm always like, damn, you get to Soul, and there's always like that small chance you still die. And now I feel like man, I go back to a regular game and I like slap this guy every time, and like it's the waves that will still mess me up. But like Soul, just getting that like I guess really focused practice was just so much fun for me.
Yeah, it was great. And I guess like going back to what we said in our build up as well, where we said people would be scared to pick Varlamore because of Echo Soul. I definitely think what we both said weighs up now. Because don't get me wrong, I died to it. I went in blind. I died to Echo Soul maybe 2 or 3 times actually. Because I went in at first and had no idea what it would be throughout the whole fight. But then after that, you do get that really like concentrated practice of just Soul, his attacks, how you should move, dealing with the totems, you know, movement in and around all of that, that it will just make you a better player, even if you've never done it before. So I think it was super cool. And looking back at Echo bosses as a whole and the Echo orbs and just jumping straight into the boss fights, really cool detail. Loved it.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely now in hindsight, I want to go watch like other content creators and how they experience Echo Soul, because man, that was like the most fun thing ever for me. And I tried to get in there really fast on my Melee account, because at this point I've been like, you know, I've been like closing my eyes every time Coliseum shows up on anything, because I'm like I don't want to see, I just do not want to see any of the mechanics. I understand there's blue and that's about it. Like
so Yeah, I was exactly the same. So Varlamore, I think we're in agreement of, which is quite rare for us actually. That's
Mm.
nice. What about least fun region? Because I have a feeling we might even agree on this one. Would you want to start?
Um,
What do you think is the least fun region?
Least fun region. Man, this feels this feels so awful to say, but I think straight up my least fun region ended up being Morytania.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's actually Morytania.
No.
It's crazy. It's really crazy to say that, honestly. But
Yeah.
to me, I just feel like I like the content, but not all of it. Um,
Mm.
I feel like Grotesque Guardians, I really didn't enjoy doing, mainly because I felt like the normal version was such a pain, and then the Echo
Oh,
version, I was already too strong by the time I got there because I felt gated out because of the normal version. It felt like the normal version
yeah.
gated me out, and then I get to the Echo
Yeah.
version, and now I'm too strong to actually properly enjoy it. So
Yeah.
that was like really, really frustrating for me personally. And
Yeah.
then I just feel like Theater of Blood is like, I mean, I had this criticism going into it, and I kind of like felt like it would come true, but to me, it ended up being that I don't like having to rely on other players to do raids. And even
Right.
though I could always find a group if I wanted to, I still felt like there was still this like almost necessity to have like a major or so at
Yeah.
least
A
somebody who can
freezer.
do
Yeah.
freezers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for me, that just like killed the raid for me personally. It just like I don't know what it is, but it was like every time I'm like, I want to go do theater, I'm like, oh, there a freezer
You need a
online.
major.
This is gonna be a
Yeah. Yeah.
pain.
You type it.
And
You
then
ask in your chat like, any majors want to
yeah,
come do hard mode?
yeah, and it's just like I don't know why, but I feel like that to me just like it kills a lot of my enjoyment for a region, and like I might just be like completely like poisoned on that, where I just like I don't know, compared to like at least doing the other raids, I feel like I could just roll up to any raid and just do them. But with theater,
Yeah.
that was always an issue, and yeah, I mean, outside of
Mm.
that, like I think the Gloves of the Dam just didn't end up feeling all that interesting for me. So all in all, like to me, I felt like Theater of Blood just ended up being like a purple printer. That's it. It was just printing
Yeah.
out uniques. And honestly, I feel kind of bad because I feel like this is gonna sound like so. This is such a such a it's such a good problem to have. I felt like I was getting so many purples that I almost wanted to go back to normal and do regulars just so I could see some like regular drops too. But then
Yeah.
like if your friends
Yeah.
still need purples, it's like and like
Yeah. You
listen,
don't want to
and
gate
listen,
them
like
out of
I'm
it, do you?
down to help them out, but I also don't need like a seventh rapier. You know, like
Yeah.
give me some
Yeah.
mahogany seeds or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I almost wish there was like a toggle to just turn on regular loot or something if you're
You
gonna get
wouldn't
like
have that
100%.
issue in
Yeah.
Zaya, my man. You would not have that issue in Zaya. Let me tell you.
Mhm.
We'll get onto Zaya in a minute, but yeah,
But
I'm with you.
yeah, I don't know. That's just like that's how I felt like for me with Martini, and then kind of like how you mentioned earlier about like the combat achievements and you know the raid stuff. I felt like for me, I just had like a million tasks locked behind Nightmare and Theater of Blood, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's still cool because like don't get me wrong, I love Theater of Blood. I think it's super fun. I think hard mode theater might be some of the most fun content I did, but like I just kind of wish that the rest of the zone was like a little bit more engaging for me because right now I feel like I'm very much like if you took theater out or even if you just took hard mode theater out for me, I feel like the whole region would just feel so bad and like yeah,
mm,
I don't even hate Nightmare necessarily, but man, doing that boss and getting like six
yeah,
trout, it's like it's actually just so like it's soul sucking in leagues. I'm like, man, why am I doing this? Like what am I doing here? I don't
yeah.
know.
The nightmare meme, where it's like, the trade request, where it's like,
Yeah.
where where it's kind of like, you get, you kill one Fasani's nightmare, and it's like 2 trout or like I don't know, 10 ashes or something terrible. That is the Fasani's nightmare experience, and
I
it
thought
is
the game was
dreadful.
bugged. I thought I was like, oh, it's because I was like, oh, I made so many mistakes, so that's why the my loot must have went down. I thought it was like one of those
Yeah,
things, and then I'm like,
yeah.
and then my chat's on like, no,
Nope.
this is
That's
just what
nightmare.
Nightmare. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm never touching this boss, I guess,
In
because
the main game,
like,
I will not do it. I
yeah,
promise, never, never. But yeah, in leagues, bit more forgiving. But even then, interesting that you went. Did you go dry? A nightmare.
I think I did like 10 nightmare and that's it.
Yeah,
I
I
was
don't
like,
blame you.
I looked at the drop rate. I was like, I'm not doing this boss. I mean, I might go
Yeah,
back and do some more because like I do think it's kind of fun. Like I enjoy it, but not enough, I would say, for me to like go grind tasks for it.
yeah,
Oh, one last thing I'll add in. I feel like I kind of hate that a large part of it is locked behind Sins of the Father. That started to kind of drive me a little bit nuts thinking
yeah,
back at it. Like it might just be because I like put it off for so long because I just didn't want to do it. I should just literally like
yeah.
first thing I just sat down and did that quest. But
Mm,
man, I just always felt like there was like a big part that was missing for me.
yeah.
And I don't know, that just kind of sucked.
Mm. On my I didn't even end up doing Sins of a Father on my melee playthrough when I had Mori. But actually, interestingly, on my randomized playthrough, I got Total Recall and I did use it during Sins of the Father, and it made it a lot quicker. But
Oh, for
even then,
sure.
it felt like a pain in the ass. It still felt like a massive detour, like an hour or however long it took of my time, that just could have been spent doing something else. There were a lot of I feel like Mori actually was a bit more forgiving than some other regions when it came to like tasks locked behind quest completions. But Sins of a Father, like you say, locks out more content than it does like just the task itself for completing it, you know? I'm with you. If I can just quickly go back to some of the things you said, because Morytania is not what I thought was the least fun region, but I agree with a lot of what you said. So I actually think that part of the reason you might feel like if you took hard mode tab away and nightmare away, there'd be nothing left in Mori. I think that's an actual, just like a bigger problem of Leagues 5 in general. And that is that this year, more than any other year that I've noticed, and I'm pretty sure if we go through the Relic passives, it will be pretty evident. The progression was faster than ever before. You know, they'd really moved forward all of the XP multipliers. 12 times XP at what, tier 4?
Tier 5, but you got yeah, tier 5 was 12 times, but you got the double combat at
You
3
got the
and the
double combat
drop
before
rate
that.
was at 4. The 5
Right.
times
And the
drop rate
drop
at
rate
tier
caps
4.
out.
Yeah.
And the drop rate caps out pretty early. Like what I'm saying is like tier 5 feels like that break point where, like, sure, you get the 16 times multiplier later on at tier 7 or whatever it is. But even at tier 5, that feels like where your like progression just skyrockets and like locks out to the point where every piece of content in any other subsequent region you unlock beyond your first, because let's be honest, you could get to tier 5 just after unlocking one region. You could do one region, start digging into some content there. You've got tier 5. You unlock further regions, and all of a sudden, all of the stepping stone, quote unquote, stepping stone content that's in those regions feels irrelevant because you're already like way too strong for it. So, like, I feel like it's a bigger symptom, the fact that most of Mori felt kind of like unfun. It's a bigger symptom of Leagues 5 being a bit too quick for progression, in my opinion, because you do just feel like way too strong or you're way too far along to actually benefit from digging into that content other than to tick off the token task of complete this or complete that. I felt like they could have slowed it down a touch, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean
know how
that's
you
why
feel
like
about that.
Barrow's grind just felt awful for me cuz like I ended up just not really doing any much
Yeah,
Barrows until I was just like straight up one-shotting them all and like
yeah,
man,
yeah.
Barrow like dude, comparing Barrows to like Perilous Moons, it's like I feel like that's just why like I don't even want to say Mauritania is like the least fun region because I feel like that feels so unfair. Like it does have such a good raid, but like I feel
It
like
does.
if I had to pick if I had to ever pick a region, like Mauritania is just last for me right now.
Fair.
So like that's kind of I
Wow.
don't know.
So
I'm
you
just so
flipped it
jaded.
in terms of region. Well, I guess in
I
terms
still
of
like the
fun,
thing is I
right?
still think like if anybody asked me like should I go Mauritania, I would probably say yeah. Like I'd probably recommend it as a region, but I think like for me personally, it's
Yeah,
just like I just like I'm so done with that region right now, and like
that's
I just
fair.
don't want to. I don't know. I just don't really want to like go there anymore and stuff. And like ultimately, I think part of that is because if somebody wanted to do theater with me, I could just log onto my main and do it with them. So it's not like
Yeah.
I'm ever missing out on doing like theater with like your friends and stuff. And I had some of my like really old friends like from like middle school. We were doing theater of blood. They got Twisted Bow, and
Nice.
they were literally I'm not even joking, they were rank 5 for hard mode. They didn't even have a banker's note yet. Like and they got a Twisted Bow and they got to have fun doing it. And like that's cool. Don't get me wrong, that's really cool, but it's also like yeah, I don't know, it's just Yeah, and
It
I'm
sounds
just
like
like,
RNG game for you, man.
yeah, I feel like I like theater. I don't like Morytania. That's where I'm at
That's
right
fair.
now.
That's
Yeah,
fair. That's fair. I won't get into Mori too much because we've got a few other things to get through.
sure.
My least fun region, and I'm sure people could have seen this coming from a mile away. Kandarin. I just feel like, and it may have been the fact that on my randomized account, I got absolutely shafted for relics, so they didn't particularly help me with the content there. But Kandarin has an issue. Number one, obviously, all of the teasers leading up to Leagues 5 were incredible. I, I don't want to take away from the fact that I still think this is the best league yet. So I don't want to take away from that at all. This isn't me just being negative. But Kandarin just felt like it offered nothing, first of all, as a region. Every unique angle that Kandarin offered could be picked up elsewhere. You know, Grimoire for Piety. The Mage gear was just like, I mean, let's not even bother talking about that because you had Fremi jewelry, you had the trident from Zora, you had the shadow from pretty much any other raid anyway. So I feel like everything Kandarin typically offered was overshadowed. But that aside, the reason I think Kandarin's was just like the least fun region was I looked through the task list the other day, filtered it just to Kandarin, and the tasks just involve either group content that you will never find a group for, Barbarian Assault, Fishing Trawler. Fair enough, you can solo Fishing Trawler, but it's not the most fun. Barbarian Assault, Fishing Trawler, just to name two. You've got Chompy Bird Hunting. God damn it. I was really hoping I'd never have to shoot another Chompy again in my life. Castle Wars. Like, I know it's not the region's fault that that's the content that is within it, but I feel like some of those tasks could have been avoided and they could have been placed elsewhere. It just felt like a lot of the tasks that fell in Kandarin relied on either other people or content that just isn't great. That's my take on Kandarin in a nutshell. I feel like it can offer some really good things. Like, yeah, Ardy has a lot of fun things for thieving. Kandarin also has some of the best NPCs to pickpocket for clues if you do go dodgy deals into the Clue Arbiter. But otherwise, I feel like unless you're picking, like I said at the beginning, unless you're picking very specific relics that synergize with that region, Kandarin can quickly feel like you've just turned the game onto hard mode and onto slow mode at the same time. That's how I feel about Kandarin.
Yeah, I mean, I would. It sucks because like I think Kandarin is the worst region, and the sad part is it's like not for any like good reasons, basically. So like personally, I don't mind a lot of the content that you mentioned. Like I don't really mind chompy hunting that much. I don't know why. I think it's just kind of silly. Like fishing trawler is pretty bad. I agree. Barbarian assault. I actually like barbarian assault. I actually did.
Oh, I don't mind playing it, but like
Yeah,
I
I don't
couldn't
mind
find a
finding
team
a group.
for,
Yeah,
for
it's
the
the
life
same
of
problem
me.
that
Yeah.
I had, and I feel like I
Yeah.
kind of got lucky because obviously I have like people I can find with like stream stuff, and I think me and you, Jack, we ended up just doing it together on our stupid
Oh,
Kandarin
really?
builds. Yeah, we're like
Nice.
sending some runs. We got it all done and stuff, and we just knocked it all out one day. Um, for me, the problem and why I like really started to hate Kandarin was because more than any other region like combined, it felt like the most like untested and us unplayed. And I just felt like there were so many bugs and issues with Kandarin that
Oh,
just really
yeah.
started to like it started to just like grind my gears because I was like, I hate this region, and it's completely not the region's fault. But like,
Yeah.
I'm sure you noticed this, right? Because I think I saw this first on your stream where corner cutter doesn't work with monkey
On
laps,
monkey
right?
laps. On
Yeah,
monkey, it doesn't work on monkey laps.
like which is insane because I think the first thing you think of when you saw corner cutter gives you laps, everyone's like, "Oh, okay, that's actually really good for Kandarin," and like
Yeah.
it just doesn't work. Like, and then like that's not even. But the thing is, like, that's not even it. Temple of Icove NPC is just straight up missing. You can't do it. There's a
Oh,
Slayer
really?
task. Yeah, the Temple of Icove NPC probably because of
I didn't
Defender
even
of
try.
Varrock or
I
something.
didn't even try.
Oh yeah, no, I went to go do that quest because I needed to get my like ranged up, and they're just missing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh okay. Like, is this the end of the world? No, but like, there's more. Defeat a Bloodveld in Kandarin. I feel like that was like to me that felt almost like a meme. Like I don't know how, because the thing is there are Bloodvelds in the cave, but you can't get assigned Bloodvelds in Kandarin. So you have to have another region that assigns Bloodvelds, even though it's specifically defeat
Really?
a Bloodveld in Kandarin. I know that this was a problem in previous leagues, which probably should have been fixed by now. And that's why I feel like it's just been an oversight. But like almost every other region had an expanded Slayer task list this year, but you still can't get Bloodveld. I ended up grinding Slayer for 3 hours and then spending 450 points trying to get an Aberrant Spectre task in Kandarin before realizing that you cannot get assigned Aberrant Spectres in Kandarin, even though it's in the Slayer. It's like imagine you're in Fremi and you can't get assigned Kurasks. Like, what? Like, things like that bug me.
Wait, is that legit? Wait, can you?
You can't. You just can't unless you have another region that assigns
Can you not kill the creatures?
You can't kill them off task.
The gnome stronghold thing off task.
You can't. Yeah, you just can't. He doesn't let you.
For real?
Yeah.
Yo,
unless I'm tripping. Listen, unless I'm tripping. I might be.
Unless I'm tripping, I don't know. I really thought you could. You've got me thinking now.
I thought you needed a task for it. I mean, you could try it, but I swear it wasn't letting me go.
Oh man.
Which is like,
I had no idea. Yeah, it says here, anyone can enter the dungeon, but players can only attack the Slayer monster they were assigned. That's a big oversight.
Yeah, like it's
huge.
It's awful, and it just like to me it was like really annoying because I was like, okay, like I can't do Aberrant, which are a good task. I can't do Bloodveld, which are a good task. Yeah. Like it was just really, I don't know. To me, it just ended up, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm just doing Fire Giants and Hellhounds for my Slayer. I guess like it was really, really frustrating. Probably the biggest, this is the most egregious example, is that Sherlock will give you clue steps that you just can't complete.
Yeah.
Especially elites, right? And like,
yeah,
just like with Monkey Laps, you're being kind of compelled to go there with agility. Kandarin is like the clue region, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like if you didn't pick Clue Arbiter, right? Which I think I would have done on my first, if I had to pick Kandarin, I would have picked Dodgy Deals, farmed out 1 million clues, and then not even bothered with Clue Arbiter because I have so many of them, right? I could just cycle through them all. Well, now you get Sherlock and you have to drop every 10 elite clues because he keeps giving you impossible tasks. And it's like, yeah, the region sucks, but it's not even like Kandarin's fault. I feel like, you know what I mean? It's just, it feels like I don't know. It feels like it wasn't tested. And that's what made me so frustrated with Kandarin because I was just getting more and more annoyed at like, I felt like I was playing against the game and playing like, felt like I was playing Leagues too, basically. That's kind of how I felt, where every other region felt like it had grown up over the course of like 5 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think especially if you pick Kandarin first, I had that exact issue. I picked Kandarin first. I got assigned it on my randomized account. I tried to do a clue scroll. First step, speak to Sherlock. He wants me to do something that I can't do. And I just think, I already know what my life is now kind of like submitted to, having picked Kandarin. And it wasn't going to be made any easier. So, yeah, that was really difficult. Like I say, I think if you pick certain relics that really do synergize well with Kandarin, you can have a better time there. Dodgy Deals or Clue Arbiter, one or the other.
Oh, you basically need Clue Arbiter. You're not going to do your clues, or you have to save like very specific tasks and swap them. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tricky. And even then, I feel like sometimes the things people have to say about Kandarin that are positive are things that are very, very temporary, small, short-term issues. So like people always say like, oh, you know, it's a great region for thieving early. You know, you've got the stalls, you've got some of the early game quests like Waterfall Fight Arena, all of those. They are all nice, sure. But even if you took them away, you would get over the issue of needing those within a few hours. And I just felt like it was a very empty region. And not just because there weren't any people there, because I genuinely feel like in my entire time playing in Kandarin on that account, I saw 4 people. And I thought that was generous. I was actually surprised, but I only saw 4 people the entire time. So not only was it an empty region, but I felt like content-wise, it really was quite empty as well. And again, you know, I get why Jagex might have just decided to kind of like ditch Kandarin this time around because of all of the quality of life changes they've made to other content, other regions, relics. You know, the component pieces now dropping full items makes Kandarin kind of obsolete as well in a way. But I feel like if it's going to be there as a choice, it needed to have something to offer. And it really didn't this year. So something that I think, you know, my chat were talking about earlier was why didn't they just start everyone in Kandarin again this year? And I thought that would have been a fun way to do it. You know, fair enough. Don't give us Misthalin and Karamja, but why not start us all in Catherby again? That would have been a nice kind of like way to give everyone Kandarin, without making it too easy with having Misthalin and Karamja as well. And then also you don't feel so bad for being in Kandarin.
Yeah, speaking of not having like any like late game stuff, man, the Devil's Element, it stinks. Like,
Wait,
oh
hold
no,
on, hold on. I
don't even
haven't
get
got there
into.
yet on the
Oh, you're not.
randomized
We can't even
account.
go into. All right, I won't
I
even
can't
go
get
into
into
that.
it too
Yeah.
much. I can't get into it. I haven't done ecothermy yet.
Oh,
That's
okay,
a
okay.
tomorrow or day after job. So
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we
Well,
can't really talk
yeah. Okay.
about
No,
that.
I won't spoil that just yet. What I will say though
Okay.
is what I, um,
But it stinks. The Devil's
well,
Element.
when I say it stinks, like to me, the reason why I am frustrated with it is because it's gated behind 93 Slayer. That's like to me, that's like so.
That's late.
That's so late. Yeah. Like I don't know, just compare that to like something else where like almost all the other echo bosses you have access to them fairly early, right?
Yeah. If you're
And
good enough, you could walk into Echo Soul day one.
yeah, you could. And
You
like
know?
yeah, and like that's pretty cool to me, but then like and the worst part is like it's like the whole time I was doing the Slayer grind, I was wishing I had the Devil's Element. And then like by the time I'm 93 Slayer, I'm already like, okay, well now
You're
my mind
maxed.
is I'm like kind of
You're
moving on
maxed
to
already.
other things. Yeah, I like don't really want
Yeah.
to be doing this as much. Um so that really, I don't know, that was like that was what kind of like upset me. And then also like, I know you mentioned like tasks could have been moved. Thermi doesn't have any kill count tasks attached to it, which like I get it, that might be
Mm.
worse, but also why does it only have one task to kill it one time? It is like there's
And
two
isn't it just an
bosses.
80 pointer as well?
It's a 30
So it's not even
pointer.
like
It's a 30
it's a
pointer to
30
kill it
pointer.
one time.
Yeah,
There's an
that's even
80 point
worse.
to kill a smoke devil one time. And
Yeah.
there's I think an 80 point to equip an occult. And that's it. And I'm like, why doesn't that at least have like 50 kills or like 150
Yeah.
kills, right? Because like it's just it's like I get it. Killing ecothermy or like killing thermy is also not like the most best content ever, but like it just
No.
felt weird when I'm like,
Yeah.
why does this have no tasks
I'm
attached
with
to it?
you.
That
The
just makes no
requirement is
sense.
high enough that I think the reward should have been there just as a sort of, congratulations, you got to 93 Slayer. You went out of your way to do this to get to Thermi. Rather than reward you for actually fighting Thermi, at least bump the points up for getting to that point in the first place. Because 93 Slayer, as you say, it's late. And by the time you're there, you've already lost like 90% of the use that you might have got out of wanting to double your elemental bonus. You know?
Yep.
Um, and I don't know about you, but what regions did you pick with Kandarin?
So well, for me, I didn't do a random vote. I did a chat voted build.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I went Kandarin, Tyrannwyn, and Wildy. Those were my with the mage build.
Okay. So at least in Terran, when you get a little bit of like what fire elemental exploit out of Zora, but in Wildy, there's nothing.
There's KBD.
Oh,
Which is,
KBD with water.
yeah, but then you have to wear a dragon shield, so you can't really wear the element. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty whack. I end
Yeah.
up liking like okay, I will say like I feel like I'm not the problem that I had when I went Kandarin is also that I was randomizing tasks. That was like the second part of my thing. It was chat voted everything, and then tasks were randomly selected from a wheel. So I
Yeah.
felt like I wasn't able to like exploit like the early game, like do all the super easy tasks of Kandarin necessarily.
Yeah.
But like that wasn't really my problem with Kandarin was just all the problems with it. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I think we both have kind of like pulled out as much as we can from those regions.
Hmm.
And I feel like we both came onto this call before we started recording saying how good this league is. So again, it's not negativity just for the sake of it. I think they're totally valid reasons that hopefully we don't encounter in future leagues, because who knows if League 6 is, going to come around and it's got a Trailblazer element again. I'm hoping it's something different when it comes to breaking down, region locks or whatever it is.
I will say
Should
that
we
I
move
think
on?
my favorite part of Kandarin, and this kind of
Oh yeah.
sums up the entire thing for me. I got randomly assigned the task equip a trident of the seas. And my fastest way to get that, because I was only like 70 Slayer, was to do Zulra and then dismantle the Trident of the Swamp instead of doing Kraken. That's
No.
actually what we came up with. Because I was like, I'm either going to sit and just do Zulra and get the Trident and dismantle it, or I could
Yeah.
grind 87. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
like Kandarin really sucks. If that's
87
a better
and
path.
93 Slayer.
Yeah.
87
like,
and 93 Slayer. And realistically, for Demonic Gorillas, you want tier 6 for the Prayer Pen, or at least you want your off-style gear to be good as well. It still feels like Demonic Gorillas were in my eyes, just not any more fun in leagues. If I had the Sunlight Spear, would have been a different story. The typeless damage would have been so much fun there. But two regions I didn't really think about mixing, so it is what it is.
Yep.
All right, so moving us on then. We're going to go in kind of like backwards.
Sure. Let's do it.
Thingy. So now we're talking about combat style.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go first? What for you was the most fun combat style?
Yeah, so I think for me, what ended up feeling like the most fun combat style was melee, and I think melee. The reason why I love melee so much is because I felt like it just had the most diversity of weapons. We've already talked about the Sunlight Spear, but we have not talked about the Kopesh and the Wildy, which I thought was so like I was not very excited about it at first, but man, it ended up just doing some really cool stuff. It made Slayer tasks pretty damn cool when you could just auto retaliate and just 100 mobs disappear in front of you in 5 minutes. Like, Kopesh was really cool. Even the shield giving you like all the full immunity and stuff like that, like which I would consider that to be like a melee weapon, so to speak, because it is like basically a new defender, so you don't have to go Asgarnia. But yeah, between like Kopesh and Sunlight Spear, and even things like Zombie Axe feeling really strong, and like the even things like the Maqueedles from Perilous Moons, like there's just like I felt like there was just a Scythe, like and Fang, Fang was cool. Like there's just like Fang was not really that strong, but it just felt like I was constantly like excited about new weapons, and I didn't really get that experience as much with Magic and Ranged.
That's fair. You know what? I might as well put it out there now because we're of exactly the same opinion. My most fun combat style, in my opinion, was also melee. Played ranged on my first playthrough, and I'm just going to throw it out there straight away. I feel like tier 6 ranged was so good, quote unquote good, that it was bad in a way. Because I'll get onto it in a minute because we'll talk more about it. But I feel like never missing ultimately limits what choices you want to use because you don't want to waste never missing. So of course you're going to pick the thing that hits the hardest or hits the fastest, and that's it. While as with melee, it didn't really have that issue. The echo element to the masteries didn't actually favor multi-hitting weapons as much as I thought it was going to, because the percentage chance was so low. So it still felt like those big heavy-hitting weapons like the Noxious Halberd, like the Zombie Axe.
I even mentioned the Halberd. That's so cool. It was so
exactly.
cool.
Even the barrel chest anchor and like stuff like that, even the meme weapons, they were all so much fun. And I just felt like melee had the flexibility this year. I said it on stream. I've said it to like anyone who's asked me. Melee was the most fun combat style for me. The most fun build with melee was the Sunlight Spear stuff, but I got to play with, like you say, the full Blood Moon set. I got to use a Scythe for a bit. I got to play around with the Zombie Axe and the Noxious Halberd. It just felt like there was really nice gear progression. And it also felt like you could substitute one thing for another thing in a certain scenario. And sure, DPS wise, it might be a tiny bit less. But actually, it wasn't really noticeable, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think even outside of like just the weapons, which obviously melee just I think won by far, had the most cool weapons. Even Nature's Reprisal giving you that ranged melee option, Noxious Halberd, kind of the same thing where you're able to attack from ranged. And then like even I think the other half of the equation is armor, because armor opened up a lot for melee as well, because you had the Blood Moon set, you could do Barrow set, Tyrannwyn became an option with the Blessing, Asgarnia is an option, Inquisitor gear, just like Justy gear for tankiness. Like there's so much gear for melee that actually matters and feels good to get and to progress through. Whereas like the problem that I had with range was it wasn't just that the weapon progression was very boring, it was that all the other progression, like listen, it's fun to do the entire game in the same clue set that I got like day 2. But like it's fun, but it's also like it does take away that component where for me, like it was basically your weapon and then the Framinic jewelry, and just nothing else matters, because
that was it.
Like that was it. And there's like range accuracy just straight up does not matter, and the amount of range strength options you have are so limited, and they're weak too. So like I'm not gonna go desert for like a tiny bit from Masori and a little bit from Venator, or the ring doesn't even matter because Fremnik to me, I think I didn't like that aspect where I felt like I just wasn't really looking forward to any gear, and like I tried to.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely made the fun on my own because I didn't really like rush the Tebow as early, and instead I was doing things like farming dragon knives for like the spec, and I thought that was pretty silly and
Mm,
pretty
yeah.
enjoyable, and like yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed like progressing through the different knives because like when I got my first dragon darts and stuff, I was like, oh, this is so sick. I got my dragon
Mm,
knives dropped. That was really cool. But it just felt like in a lot of ways it still has that issue of like you could just rune crossbow everything, and then you
yeah.
just Tebow everything, and like
Yeah.
game is just not. There's just no like niche or like variety there that exists. Whereas like
Would you say that's the least fun combat style then for that reason? Like, is that
no,
what you're getting at?
no, I would not say it's the
No?
least fun combat style. Um,
Okay, well, before you get onto that, then, because
yeah,
it's clearly going to be magic. But while we're
yep.
talking about range,
Mm,
um, because I'm going to agree with you on the least fun combat style too. But while we're talking about range, let's give it a moment. I agree. I did rush a Tebow, and as soon as I had it, that was it. All the doors closed. There's a few scenarios that you don't use a Tebow in. That sure you just stick on a blowpipe or darts, and that's it. You know, it's either blowpipe, darts, or knives. We're putting them all in the same category. Thrown weapons slash blowpipe, one tick. Tebow done. There's no reason to use anything else, unfortunately. And that is definitely how it felt. Even those more fun, memey ranged weapons that I was hoping would, not even necessarily keep up DPS wise, but feel fun to use. Dark bow, ballista. Well, they're the only two that I can really think of right now. But dark bow and ballista, pretty fun, memey like ranged weapons that don't get much love. I tried both of them in kind of one build or another, and yeah, they just didn't feel good. Like in any way, they didn't compare. So that was a shame. And I feel like this year for ranged, it was quite a telling experience. Like whenever someone dropped into my chat and said like, "Hey man, I'm doing a range build. What region should I pick?" And it got to the point where I just started saying like, "Bro, just pick Fremennik, and then whatever else you want, it really doesn't matter. Just pick Fremennik, and then if you want a twisted bow, pick a range region, a raid region, and that's it. You're set. Fremennik, raid region. Doesn't matter which one it is. Doesn't matter what else you pick with it. You're done.
I'm so glad you said that. Oh my god,
That's
I've
it.
been saying that, and I feel like I feel bad because I'm like, man, they think I'm giving them the most like non-answer ever, and I'm like, that's literally just it. You just pick
Yeah,
Fremennik,
that was
you
it.
pick a raid, and that's it. If
That's
you
it.
want a Tebow, if you don't, like, just go do whatever you want. You're
Yeah.
fine. Like, it's just totally chill. Like, it doesn't really matter past that. So,
And I guess
and
that's
even
nice in
Fremennik,
a
you could
way to like
kind of
not
drop.
like to have the flexibility. I guess it's nice to be like, okay, I guess I just need Fremennik, and then I don't need to overthink my other two regions. But the reality of it, the practicality of just using that Fremy jewelry with, I don't know, a full frog outfit. Like it's fun and it's memey for day one, day two, day three, day four. You're like, okay, novelty's worn off. I'm kind of bored. Where's my gear progression? Oh, it doesn't exist. That's it. So it was fun. It was really good. I don't want to hate on range too much because I think the Masteries were an incredible addition to this league. But I feel like tier 6 range may be too strong for its own good.
Well, and I honestly like I feel kind of weird because I don't think the problem is necessarily the masteries. I think ranged, if you look at all 6 of them, they are so beautiful in how they complement each other with you're never missing, you're getting the max hit. The third one feels like a massive step up, unlocking some darts and knives. And maybe that was a little bit problematic of how strong it was right off of tier 3. And then like tier 5 opens up a lot of options. Tier 6 opens up like the progression of ranged masteries is so incredible. Everything works well together. Nothing feels passive. The healing even feels good with the static. That makes you like incentivized to go with faster choices. It's just that like I feel like it's almost like it's not the masteries the problem. It's the game that just doesn't suit them very well when
You think?
range strength doesn't really like I think for example personally for me, I love not missing. I love that. I hate hitting zeros. It's awful
No one
for
likes
me.
hitting zeros.
The problem that I have is that the whole range gear is based around accuracy. So, you're kind of eliminating the entire style there, and that's to me that's more of the issue, less about necessarily never missing. It's just that I feel like it was like a mismatch there where like if ranged gear, like if, like for example, like a melee you never missed, you would still have a lot of
Mm.
different pieces you wanted to go for to
Yeah,
optimize
of
your
course.
damage.
Melee strength has a lot more flexibility, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
see, I think that we might differ on that only because I think that the masteries need to complement the game and the game not the masteries, you know, because the game's been
Of
there
course, yeah.
for years and years. So like for me, what I would love to see, doesn't matter about this league because you know it's here now, it's been and gone, whatever. But what I would love to see if they go down this mastery route again, and again, this is going to be a lot of work. This is going to be a lot of work. I don't think they'll ever do it. But for range, there needs to be almost at least 2 trees going down each style. Because for this league, when you look at the range tree, you're absolutely right. They complement each other really, really nicely. You know, the speeding up of attack speed is standard. But then that complemented range so well because you'd be hitting more damage on subsequent hits up to 5. You'd be healing every 5 hits. It just felt like good. But when you look at that, and if you just read it back to yourself, you start to realize that actually this range tree was just designed for fast hit and range weapons. And actually a whole mastery tree designed to complement in the main only one style of range weapon feels kind of bad. And I think that if they'd done 2 range trees and had one that complemented slower ranged weapons, things like the dark bow, things like the ballet, and just slower range things like even crossbows in general would also have their time and their own kind of way of playing that way. And I think that would be incredibly fun. And if they did that for each style, so if they had two trees for melee as well, one that maybe complemented two-handed weapons, one that complemented one-handed, I don't know how they would do it, but I do feel like one tree for each style was a bit too limiting and a bit too telling of exactly what weapons they wanted to buff. You know,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
range like throwing knives for range. For melee, they were trying to buff multi-hitting weapons and like scythe being the king. For magic, bro, I don't even know what they were trying to do for magic. Like I couldn't look at that tree and be like, oh yeah, they want to buff that. I have no idea what was going on with magic.
Yeah, I think like even like so here's what I thought about like melee, for example, was like I don't think you need to have like necessarily like two separate trees, but even like one node that like splits into three, for example. Like I thought it'd
Yeah,
be cool if like imagine like the tier 4 node for melee or something was like plus 150 stab, one plus 150 crush, or plus 150
that's it.
slash. And
And then you
now it's
kind of
like
lock in
you
the
are
top. Yeah.
super accurate in that
Mm.
style, and that's
Yeah.
going to change based on what weapons you have, you know, and that might influence. Maybe you are going to go for a bit of a crush build instead because all the
Yeah.
things you have are like weak to crush, you know, and I think
Yeah.
something like that would have been kind of cool because I mean, you're still pretty accurate, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think for range, for example, if you had to spec into like thrown bows or crossbows, that might be kind of good because it is kind of weird where it's
Yeah.
just like okay, you use like steel knives until like
Yeah.
rune crossbow. And so, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did enjoy though. Like again, I did enjoy ranged a lot, and I had more fun with it than I thought I would.
Yeah.
It's just the gearing process to me felt very like one dimensional. I think the worst thing that
Yeah.
happened to me, honestly, this was my mistake too. Is one day I just simmed the T-bow. And I started feeling depressed. I was like, "Oh no, it's really that
Yeah.
good, huh? Like it really
Yeah.
is that good." So
Yeah.
until then, I was doing like I called it the knife juggler build because I was just doing dragon darts and dragon knives. I didn't have any blowpipes, and
It's cool that you went
I was
out
just
of your
tossing
way to
stuff.
get that though, because
Mhm.
for me, I picked Tyranwin, rushed Crystal Armor and Bofa, and then I just used that to spam chambers until I got a T-bow, which came
Right.
pretty early, like day 3 T-bow, and I was just like, that's my league done. Like not okay, slight exaggeration, but like that's the pinnacle of range gear right there. And it's like that's it. Now I just use this weapon and then
Mhm.
that's it. But it was still fun. I did enjoy ranged. But let me you know what? I don't want to sidetrack us too much because we've still
Oh,
got
I know.
relics
Yeah,
to
we
hit
got some
onto.
stuff.
What so you think magic is the worst combat style? Talk me
Yeah,
through it.
I think so. I okay, so it's kind of weird. Like, I will say, like, my experience playing Magic is very different because it was with random regions and random relics. So I didn't get to like properly optimize. I'm actually working right now on creating what I consider to be like a somewhat optimal mage build.
Mm,
Of picking good regions for mage and stuff, and that's going to be a bit more of my test. But even so far from my experience of it, like I have two major problems with Magic, and that's that the accuracy just feels awful, like really awful until you get Shadow, which is kind of the same problem I had last year. To be honest, it's just
yeah.
you're bad
Yeah, it
until you
is.
get Shadow. The other issue that I have is the Mage Masteries are just so incoherent that I don't even know I don't really even know what they do a lot of the time. Like, they just don't make sense to me, and compared to range and even compared to, like, melee, I just like, it just feels so unfinished with the masteries, and that to me is like a bigger problem. I don't even necessarily care if the damage is lower than the other two. That doesn't really
Mm.
matter to me. The
Yeah,
damage
yeah,
still
yeah,
feels
yeah.
fine. It's
No,
just it's
agreed.
just like it's just weird when I'm like for example, I mean, I was doing Echo Hispori last night to try to get the trumpet, because I thought Nature's Reprisal would be like the early game option.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I have 97 magic. I'm casting Fire Wave. Hespori is supposed to have 100% elemental weakness, and I'm still splashing like 6, 7 times in a row. And it's just
yeah,
I mean, it's just like my heart is just dying out here because I'm just watching myself miss, 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 miss. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I grind
mm,
out brimstone chests for a mystic piece? Like, I don't, I'm
yeah,
97 magic. Like, what
mm,
do I do here? I don't know. It was pretty soul draining having to do that. And yeah. And then the masteries just, they don't feel like they're working as intended. I don't feel like I'm getting these like massive executes. And if anything, I think the really big hits end up feeling kind of awkward because it's like, oh wow, I hit like a 80 or a 90, and then the next hit's like a 2, and it's like, oh
yeah,
man, dude. Like, I think the more consistent range, I like sorely miss that. Where at least you're always hitting like
yeah,
somewhere in the teens, the 20s, kind of.
yeah. No, I get that. I haven't done an optimal mage build, so I can't really comment on like what max mage feels like.
Mhm.
But what I was just talking about before this, when we were talking about combat masteries and magic in general, I looked through that magic tree and I just struggled to imagine what weapon besides the shadow really stands out. Don't get me wrong, Nightmare Staff, always going to be insane. Shadow, always going to be insane. Sang Staff, always going to be great. And Trident, they're just going to be good magic weapons. But like, I just, I just didn't see the synergy, but from like mastery to mastery, like building up a sort of picture of like, right, so this is the play style they're going for here. It just did not feel like Magic benefited, and I do feel in a way sympathetic for the J mods because I think Mod Rice commented on this in the Discord before leagues went live when the masteries were originally teased. Magic is just in a weird place in old school RuneScape in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have a magic damage multiplier on a piece of gear, you almost just want to kind of like pick it up like this and just like put it in the bin. Like you just don't want anything to do with it because it's not actually benefiting your build too much. Magic accuracy is great, sure, but it's very easy to come by outside of like, you know, leagues or Iron Man game mode. So Magic is in a weird spot gear wise. I'm sure that's part of the issue. And like I can't wait to see what the some of the new ideas they've got for Magic. So you know the new Fire Giant and Ice Giant boss that's coming out, and the Magic stuff that's associated with that, the slower Magic hits that's
Mhm.
going to have, but the more damage that it has. I would have liked to have seen more of that in for this league, but again, I guess we can't, you know, have it all. And Magic is just in a very static place. It feels like, you know, everything's attacking on around ish the same ticks. Like it's either 5 or 4. Let's be honest,
Well,
as a
it's
base.
the worst thing is that it's actually worse than that because by default all your spells are 5 tick, right? So
Yeah.
standards, ancients are all 5 tick. Well, early game you only have 80%, right? So you're going
Mm.
from 5 tick to 4 tick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
as you progress a bit more into mage, okay, well now you have powered stabs, you have trident
Yeah.
and warped scepter and all that. Well, those are
Yeah.
all 4 tick. And at this
Yeah.
point you're at tier 5. So you're getting 4 tick weapons to 2 tick weapons, right? And so, but the thing is, your 5 tick to 2 tick standard spells aren't
Yeah.
that far behind. So it feels like
Yeah.
your jump there is so minimal because
Yeah.
you're
A
jumping
tier
from,
5. Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, again, if you compare it to something like range, where I mean, range is obviously the big winner because it has like darts and knives and all that. But like you compare it to melee, for example, you're going from maybe like a scimitar or something like that, or you're probably going from a 4 tick weapon, right? And then you're progressing into a 5 tick weapon. Now that has that extra bonus and it really feels a lot stronger, and it's like a completely new weapon. Well, for me, it was like it felt like I just stepped up like one tiny little baby thing, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, ice barrage or like even like fire spells or whatever, they're hitting like 28. Okay, now I gotta try it and it hits a 30, but it's the same
Yeah.
speed, so
Yeah.
it's like it just
Yeah.
feels really whack. Where it's like it's almost like, can you imagine like if you went from using like Like, imagine if you went from like zombie axe to like whip or something, and that was your progression.
Yeah,
It's like that's
yeah, it's
it.
minimal.
And it's
It's
like you,
minimal and only in
yeah,
really a certain style, you know?
yep. And then oh man, I
Yeah.
remember I grinded demonic gorillas, got super lucky, Zenite at like 20
Oh,
kills. I
nice.
go equip my tormented bracelet. Max damage went up by 1. Let's freaking go. You know
Oh,
what I mean? I'm
no.
like, oh, 31 up to
Yeah.
32. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
man, like it's like, because like all the damage is so scaled around like shadow. So it's like
Of
just,
course, yeah.
it just feels really
Yeah,
whack and stuff. I don't know.
it does.
That just upset me kind of, where it just felt like the masteries were almost like working against me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And you know, one thing that I should have thought about in our build-up conversation, because I was really excited about the Devil's Element, and I was really
Mhm.
excited to see whether it would pop off with Elemental Weakness. Bro, it didn't even click to me that if you want to do that, you also need Fremi, because you're not going to be able to make Wrath runes, and you're
Yep.
not going to be able to use the surge spells. Like, sure, you could get lucky at Vorkath and you could get some drops, and like they might last you a little while if you're lucky. But again, you would need Kandarin and Fremi. So you need 2 regions as a minimum to kind of benefit from using at the best possible elemental spells. And that's just like a realization that came to me really late, that I think really took away from just took away from Magic in general. That was like, right, okay, if I want to actually use the Devil's Element, what am I doing here? Okay, I want a Nightmare Staff. That's Morytania. I want to do the best possible elemental spells. There you go. It's KMF, and that's literally it. And it just felt like there was only really one possible route for maxing elemental spells this league, and that was kind of sad considering there was a whole echo item dedicated to it. So I don't know. That kind of felt bad to me.
Yeah, I will say the only thing I've kind of, because like I mean everybody asks me like how would you fix Mage, right? And it's like okay, where do we begin, right? But for me,
Yeah.
I think obviously I think Mage just needs like probably a bigger check in the main game, like we kind of mentioned. But I felt
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the one thing I actually, and this is where my Mage build started to feel really fun for me personally.
Hmm.
Obviously again it's a chat voted thing, so take it as you will. Maybe I'm just Stockholm
Hmm.
syndromed into like whatever they give
Yeah.
me
You're
at this
being
point.
held
I'm just
hostage, dude. Like,
yeah, but with Kandarin, Tyrannwyn, and the Wildy, no shadow, like no nothing basically. What ended up kind of feeling fun for me was now that I'm in the late game, I actually have a lot of weird like specialist weapons that actually end up covering all my bases. So Gauntlet doesn't need anything because you're going in there fresh anyways, right? So it doesn't matter. Mage
hmm.
actually feels really good in the Gauntlet.
Yeah, it
Okay,
does. Yeah.
for Zulra and things like any elemental weakness, I have the Devil's Element to help me there, right? And then in the Wildy, I'm using Thamarin Scepter everywhere, anyways. So I actually have a
Yeah.
weapon there. And then I actually have a lot of demons, and that's where like the Purging Staff ended up kind of carrying me. So in a lot of like weird ways, once I kind of like assembled all these weird specialist weapons, I kind of did
Yeah.
have everything fully locked up. But at the same time, it's
Mm.
also like, and that kind of feels cool that like you're grinding for a weapon, and then
Yeah.
like it kind of worked, but at the same time, like the effort that went into even setting that up, and then just being reliant on like, okay, like Thamarin Scepter's just carrying me through the whole wildy, basically,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
things like that just felt kind of not that great, and I just feel like um if that was like the intended method, I think they needed to go a lot harder into it. And I think in
Mm.
general, like I think the whole Mage Combat Mastery probably needed to like be a lot different. It almost felt like I almost feel like they like gave up halfway with the Mage one and then just started putting in the others
Mm.
and stuff like that, like the speed reductions and stuff. Like what if the speed had actually stayed the same? And that was what Mage did. Mage just did like 200s or something like that. You
Well,
know what I mean?
that's
Like
what I
that'd be kind of
mean. Like,
crazy. Yeah.
they were saying, one of the first things you see is increases damage for time taken between attacks, but then it's like, oh wait, it's still got the universal attack speed buff at tiers 3 and 5. So like, how much am I really benefiting from this, other than my first hit against every new NPC after I've not hit something for a while? I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like kind of like anti synergy a lot of times in the Mage tree,
Also,
and
the execute feels bad because if you miss, you still don't execute, right? So like,
oh
there's
really?
sometimes like man, there's sometimes I'm not gonna lie. Every time I
Yeah,
was doing the fight caves, right, and I go to hit one of the little fire dudes that
you
have
go to hit
10
a bat.
HP and it misses, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh my, because I'm already
Mm.
moving on to the next mob in my head, and then
That's
I
it.
look and I'm like,
Combat
oh
task
my
failed
gosh,
right there,
yeah, I
buddy.
know. It's just like I feel like at least giving 100% accuracy on the first hit would have been nice because like
Yeah.
I mean, missing your execute feels so
That would
bad.
be
It's
like
like
Berserker packed into a mastery, and that would have been really
exactly.
nice, you know?
Yeah,
That would
and
have
it
been really
also would
nice.
mean like in a lot of ways, I feel like the cool part is it almost makes single target areas feel like multi because you can attack every mob and you're never put
Yeah.
in combat because you're always
Yeah,
one
that's it.
shotting. But man,
Yeah.
there's like one time that you miss and there's a mob just punching you, and now you're stuck in combat, and then you have to wait like 6 seconds to get out of
Yeah,
combat,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, oh, like I just hate
Everyone
it.
knows that feeling.
And if you're in multi, like you're
Everyone
using
disliked that.
ancients anyways, so it's like it's just like
Yeah.
every time I miss, I would just it's like a part of me is just like my soul is leaving my body, basically. So
Everyone disliked that.
yeah.
100%. No, I get it. But it's interesting you say that, trying to think about this just positively before we move on. That there was quite a few, because I guess I didn't really divert too much, or at least in my randomized build, I don't have those options. But like you say, for the Wildy, Dameron Scepter, the Demon Bane weapons were actually really good, but I will just quickly put out there that it doesn't matter that Tormented Demons were available from the get-go with Misthalin. You were rarely going back there and ready to fight them until you already had gear that kind of surpassed the Demon Bane weapons. Like, other than in a very few like situations, like maybe against Duke or maybe against Krill, or I guess against like Echo Cerberus. If you would pick in those regions, then yeah, maybe you go out your way to grind that. Otherwise, let's be honest, you're probably going back to do Tormented Demons because you need the points towards Dragon Cup or towards Tier 8. And at that point, you don't really need the weapons. So it was kind of cool to hear that you were using the Purge and stuff, because I think that is a relatively new addition that a lot of people have actually found is just really good, like in a lot of content. So maybe maybe we are moving towards like a healthier place for Magic. I just hope that this time next year when we're having this conversation, Magic isn't in the bin. That's just what I hope.
Yeah, and I think again, like I will say like Magic definitely needs work, but it's like it's surprisingly close, I think, to being fun. It just
Yeah.
needed like I feel like if it had never missed, for example, it would already be like way, way, way better. In fact,
Yeah.
my current like this is my sort of like idea right now is I'm worried that what ended up happening was Mage was too good at first, and then they had to
Yeah,
scale
they
it
nerfed
back
it.
because they were really worried that you
Yeah.
get into the same situation as last year. In fact, it'd be even worse because everybody's going. What is everybody asking for in chambers and in theater? They're asking for a
Yeah.
major. They're asking for a freezer. Can you
Yeah.
imagine if Mage was the best and everybody was playing Mage and you're a Ranger or a melee trying to
Yeah.
get into theater? You're
Yeah.
never getting picked. Okay,
No,
never.
absolutely not.
Nobody's
Especially
ever
if
picking you.
Mage doesn't miss.
Yeah,
People
if
would be
Mage
looking at
doesn't
Rangers
miss,
like,
you're
nah,
never
we don't
getting
want
picked.
you.
Yeah, you're
We don't
never
want
ever
you.
you're never ever getting picked, right? Like, because why
Yeah.
would you ever take somebody instead of a major that can just carry you through theater and do all the freezes, right? And it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, that was Leagues 4 kind of all over again, wasn't it? Leagues
yeah,
4, just like everyone was picking Mage. It was so good. I guess, it's had its time now.
yeah.
That's it.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, again, it just feels like it needs a little bit more work on the masteries.
I agree. Right, moving on.
Mhm.
Relics. Now, I feel like there's a lot we could say about relics, but let's keep it like succinct. Here's
Right,
here's the
right.
two questions, well, the two categories I have, because I feel like at first it was just best worst relic, best relic, worst relic, and then your favorite relic combo.
Okay.
Because I
Okay.
think there's a lot of cool relic combos out there. And I got asked quite a lot, like, what are your favorite like relic combinations together? And there's quite a few like to think of there. For relic combo, reloaded into something is a perfectly valid reason. But do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll have you go over. I've been ranting about Mage for like. I'll have you talk here if you want to do your best relic.
Okay.
Or do you want to do all three,
Okay.
or how do you want?
No. Let's start with best relic.
Best relic. Okay.
For me, I think the best relic was reloaded. And I really thought about this quite a lot, because originally I might have gone with like the basic, sorry to offend if either you or someone out there is thinking this. At first I was thinking like, oh, do I go down the basic like neuron activated last stand pick and just say like, oh yeah, last stand is fantastic, because not because like, oh, at least if I make a mistake, I stay alive, but more because like number go up a lot with last stand. You die, your stats go up to 255. They're crazy. If I had to pick a second place, it would be last stand. But I think reloaded is, in my opinion, the best relic, because historically, this has never been a thing, right? Your choices are permanent; they're locked in. And how many leagues have there been where I think someone has had relic regret? I would argue in every single league, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have had relic regret. And I think this is the first league that has allowed you, at the perfect halfway mark, tier 4 out of 8 tiers, to think, right, what is my build missing? I've had enough time to think about this now. Progression is it's still fast, but now the tiers are going to start to slow down. Am I struggling for herb lore? Do I actually want to go back to tier 2 and actually sort out like thieving or agility or God damn it, everyone knows it's not agility, but you know what I mean? Where do I want to go back and what do I want to sort? So I thought Reloaded was really, really cool. I think what they should have done is just grayed out the teleport options when you click on Reloaded so that you literally don't have the option to go back and pick them. That would have been nice. Yeah, I think Reloaded for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in hindsight, I feel like I would almost definitely say the same. But like for me, the thing is that I don't really treat Reloaded as a relic. I just treat it as like a
Yeah.
choice of 6, essentially. That's kind of always been in my head. It's just a choice of
Yeah.
6, basically. For me, the best relic by far has been Equilibrium. I have been a super Equilibrium stan. I'm not even joking. I know people are gonna like. Listen, I've been defending this take for 5 weeks. Okay, I've had people. It's been a long road for me.
Someone in my chat before we came on to chat was like,
yeah.
call him Mr. Equilibrium because he's been defending this relic for like the last 5 weeks.
Listen, at this point, I'm over it. Like, because I have everybody coming in telling me how bad it is and stuff, and I'm like, but no, I think in general, like, it's funny because every complaint I've seen about Equilibrium is exactly what I said when I rated the relics, so I totally get it. But after having like played it, the best way I can describe it, somebody left a comment when I talked about it. It's kind of like just having sandpaper on all of your skills. Like it just smooths them all out, makes all the progression feel nice and clean. And like to me, I found that playing with Equilibrium had more of an impact in like what I actually did and what skilling methods I did than like any other relic I've played with. The biggest thing I could say is that like it just makes everything feel pretty decent, and like there was no real skill that I ever was like, man, this skill really sucks to train, or this feels really awful to train. And I thought, listen, at first I thought I was coping, but I did it on a second account too. That account is also near max, and man, Equilibrium just it feels really, really cool. For me though, the thing is though, I think you pick Equilibrium because you want to play around with Equilibrium and you want to see what weird stuff actually ends up working. So like mastering mixology, when you're like dunking those herbs in there, you're getting like 250 drops or something. Like you just get some crazy stuff like that just starts happening where you're like, holy moly, this is like kind of nuts how much extra, because there's a lot of like little like pity tertiary experience that you get now. Like, man, I remember I was doing Winter Todd and I think I went like 30 to 60 herb lore just making the potions in between games because that starts like massively speeding up. And a lot of people always say like, oh, Equilibrium's only for like 50 mil, dragon, maxers, but I feel like the coolest part was the early game where like you hit Equilibrium and now like all your skills are just pretty damn good because like raking a farming patch is suddenly like pretty good experience for level 1 farming, and things like that. Like, man, I remember I was runecrafting, I was dropping all my essence and one by one picking up and runecrafting because early game it takes forever to get, but it was because it was actually worth it at the beginning when you have like no essence, you have like it takes forever to even get there, and like I think I would probably say that for the vast majority of people, they probably won't like it. But I think like for me who kind of enjoys going out of my way and like testing some weird stuff and doing weird skilling methods, like I found like Equilibrium was so fun to play with, and like it was like a really nice all around like cool option. And I had a lot of I had a lot of fun doing it, and it just it's like definitely something I'd pick. I think the earlier it is now, the better actually, because you start getting that benefit when your skills are still pretty low. And it's actually in the end game when I think it doesn't really matter as much because like, unless you're grinding for 50 mils, you don't really need the extra experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, still haven't picked it. I mean, maybe there's time for one more playthrough where I pick all the relics I haven't picked yet. But yeah, I feel like for me, Equilibrium was always the relic that someone in the chat or someone somewhere said like, oh yeah, have you thought about picking Equilibrium? And I've always said no because until this randomized account, I've always felt like my choices always account for the skills that I think are going to be a pain to get around, you know? But I feel like, I guess if you want to ignore all of that and focus on the relics that you think will just be the most fun, then Equilibrium, like you say, will smooth out the edges a little bit. But like on my first playthrough, I picked all my relics, just making sure that whatever weakness the account would have was kind of covered through one way or another without picking Equilibrium. So I get it. But I guess I just never really thought about picking it. But cool. So Equilibrium was your favorite.
Yeah, I will say.
Or at
Last
least
thing
what
I'll
you thought was
say.
most
Last
fun.
thing I'll say about it though is like if you pick it, you should try to seek out ways to use it because if you just pick it and
Yeah.
you do all the regular training methods, it's gonna feel
Yeah,
so
no.
awful. And it's like
Mm.
it's like picking Golden God and then you never actually buy stuff to Alk and you just
Yeah.
it's like you got to
Yeah.
use it to make it feel good. I think you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
So,
totally get that. Like, don't go picking Equilibrium if you're just gonna do a whole inventory at once. And that's actually a question I had was how does it with Production Master, does it still count every single thing in the inventory? So it
yep,
gives you
you
one
get.
fat XP drop?
Well, you would get like 20, let's say you have 27 things and you
Mm.
produce them all, you get 27 times your equilibrium. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does count and you like get a lot, especially like, man,
Yeah.
I remember like I did equilibrium production master and I was getting like 5,000 for a full inventory of like bronze bars or something that you can
Yeah.
buy. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's some pretty cool stuff you can do with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. You just got to seek out the methods with that. But that's cool. That's cool. Right. Worst relic. Are we gonna agree?
What do you think is
What's
the worst
yours?
roll? Wait, I had one and I totally forgot. Hold on. Wait, you say yours. Let me get a second. I totally
I'll say
wrote it
mine.
down. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Fine. I personally, and there's nothing that will make me change my mind on this. The worst Leagues 5 relic is Corner Cutter. There's almost no debate for me because I looked at each one of the tiers and I thought, like, what is the relic I would like the least out of all of these? And I feel like at every tier, other than Reloaded and going back to pick a teleport relic, which I think is just the worst thing you can possibly do, is pick 2 teleport relics intentionally, is pick Corner Cutter. Because number one, it's not even the best relic for agility. Somehow Dodgy Deals is. Number two, the money you get from Corner Cutter somehow feels worse than just going out and doing like trivial low level Slayer PVM and the drops you get from there, because the rate at which you get marks of grace aren't even that good, and getting 40k per lap, then increase to 80k per lap actually isn't much. Like if you have to do 10 laps for 1 mark of grace, you've just spent loads of time that you could have gone out of your way and made easily like 200, 300k doing something else. So the money element of Corner Cutter is just it's not even really a main feature of it. It's a nice to have, but it's not even a main feature. So if we're talking about the main features of Corner Cutter, what is it? It's an agility relic. And the agility XP isn't that good. I remember picking it and someone in my chat said, "Hey man, at least you'll never have to do another agility lap again." And besides the 120 odd monkey laps I did, plus some Sears laps for money and some Canifis laps and just like the odd laps here and there, and Sepulchre, of course, I did a lot of Sepulchre. I still only ended up somewhere around like late 80s agility. And that doesn't feel great for a relic that is centered around agility. Like I should be getting XP everywhere I go. I made a conscious effort to keep the Greaves on. I feel like in Leagues, Trickster last year was so good because of all of the multiple elements. They stripped it right back to like it's like core, like just a couple core features, and it's not enough as a relic as a standalone. I just really couldn't see how either of the other two choices wouldn't be a must pick over that.
Oh yeah, I totally disagree. That's crazy.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
I totally disagree. I mean, to be fair, I agree with a lot of like what you're saying. Mainly about I feel the biggest problem that I have with Corner Cutter is that it just doesn't feel like you get enough agility, and that is a little bit weird to me. You know what I mean?
That
Like
is weird.
it's weird because I'm like I've been playing this account for like a lot for a week, and I'm only like 90, but I've been playing a lot of hours. Where it's like I think I should be like 99. Like I'm curious how long you have to play the game to get 50 mil, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
understand that that's functionally no time you're actually spent training agility, but like I just want to see how long it takes because it feels like you have to play like I'm not joking, like you probably have to play like 300 hours or
Yeah,
something like
I'm not even.
crazy amount.
Well,
Yeah,
like
like
you spend so much time in leagues teleporting around. Minigame teleports, no cooldown. You get a teleport relic. Everyone gets a teleport relic. Like I feel like you just don't actually get as many XP drops from Sage's Greaves as you think you do. You know?
yeah,
Anyway,
I
carry
don't
on.
know. So I agree with that for sure. The the other or the thing is though is that I don't really think it's that bad, and I honestly don't think it's as like ridiculous. I definitely would probably say it's the weakest of the three for sure. Um, but first
Mhm.
off, it does give you early game money. I would say significantly better than the other two. Dodgy deals is pretty close. It's pretty close, but like it does give you early game money, especially if you're not going Golden God in tier 4. I mean, you need some way to like exist early game and buy your initial like cash stack and whatnot. So, like, I think that's pretty powerful. I think if you have any region that has laps associated with it, then it would be good. Although I don't know if that's working for more than just Kandarin, but um,
Mm.
even things like getting early like Pyro Hook and stuff like that is pretty huge and whatnot.
I
Um,
will say that was pretty quick. That was pretty quick. That was nice.
right, yeah, and like there's like a couple of like big benefits that you can get there. The thing that I keep seeing is people are like, okay, well, like dodgy deals is so good because you get your agility up really well, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like also thieving is really easy too with corner cutter. Like right now, in if you go to the Wildy, the chests there are like over 5 mil an hour, for example. Early game thieving, different story. It sucks. It's awful. It's
Yeah.
dreadful. I'm probably going dodgy
Mm.
deals every time because early thieving is like it makes me want to rip out my hair. But like late game, Wildy chests are still like 5 mil an hour. I actually spent like half an hour trying to figure out how to set up the guards in Tyranwin. I was
Mm.
able to go
Mm.
back and forth between the gem stalls and the silver stall, and I was getting like
Mm.
I think I was getting over 4 mil an hour, and that was at 12 times. So at 16 times, it'd
Mm.
be like 5.5 mil an hour. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, like theming is great and all, but if I'm getting almost 6 mil an hour doing this anyways, like, do I really need a relic that makes it that much better? To me, I think
Mm.
the biggest advantage is if you have something like obviously if you have things like Vires or the uh the the
Oh, elves.
elves, yeah,
Yeah.
or if you have like, if you're trying to get clues, like all those easy clues, that's pretty cool and stuff. But I don't know. I just feel like thieving's already pretty easy and just straight up getting zero time agility, pretty nice. Like I just never had to think about my agility level playing
Mm.
it. So
Mm.
I didn't really think it was like that much of an issue, to be honest. Like, um, yeah, I would say the only weak part about it is really just it's just the agility feels weird. That's like it feels like you just like I wish I could
Yeah.
even if it like
Yeah.
doubled your experience while doing laps. I feel like at least that would not
But even the
25%.
laps, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring up the task list right now, and I guarantee you, there's barely any lap tasks this year, or at least the lap tasks cap out really quickly. Like there was no do 100 laps or do 50 laps of this course. It was just like the global lap tasks, wasn't it? And fair enough, it was good for that. But I'm looking here. There's only 16 lap tasks in all of the league. Obviously, if you break that down by your regions, you may have only had like maybe 6 lap tasks. So I feel like Corner Cutter, in terms of the value it gives, caps out very quickly. I feel like just looking at this task list, the most I can see is about 50 laps. So fair enough. It makes 50 laps of like the Prif course and the Relica course. I think they're the only two that you have to do 50 of.
Oh, I heard it doesn't work at the
Um,
Prif course, but I don't know if that got fixed or not.
oh god damn it. What, you're still defending this Relic?
No, listen, okay? That's not the Relic's fault, okay? It's
You're
external
still
variables.
defending it? Like, oh, it doesn't work there, by the way. Oh, but it's still a great Relic.
Oh no, I think but again, I think the reason that I have is like eventually you do get 99 agility for free, like it'll take you a while, but you do get 99 agility for free, whereas like
Yeah,
if you pick
eventually.
dodgy deals, you have to train agility and you have to train thieving, so like
I
like,
suppose, yeah.
I think
I suppose.
ultimately it's a zero time skill, right? I think if you treat it like that, it is ultimately, but it is kind of weird that I would say the average player doesn't even hit 99 before they're done with their account, and that feels really awkward for sure, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't I don't think it's like to me, just straight up not having to do a skill is pretty massive. So I value that pretty highly.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
especially if
your
you don't have any
opinion.
good if you don't have any good agility options, like I mean, I don't know, but I feel like I might
I
be
feel like
like
everyone had a
underrating.
good like Brimhaven is still
Brimhaven is
good.
really good. Yeah, like I think Brimhaven
Yeah.
is really good. I know a lot of people are doing underwater with like dodgy deals and stuff. Um,
Mm.
I don't know because maybe I'm just tripping, but like every time somebody talks about that, it feels like they're reporting higher and higher numbers, and I'm like, I don't know where you guys are.
I do no 100%. I agree that people have been absolutely overshooting that because the amount of times where people have like come into chat and said like, "Oh, why are you doing this for agility? Just go do underwater thingy." And and I asked them. I just straight up say like, "How much agility XP are you getting per hour there?" And, I've heard that number get as high as like millions per hour,
I've heard like
and I
3
just
mil an hour. I'm like, all right, maybe
yeah,
I'm
and I'm
just
like,
bad at that
okay, well
course, I
that's
guess. Yeah.
insane. To fuck picking corner cutter, I'll just go do dodgy deals, and that's the agility relic now. So I'm not like entirely set on it because if I'm honest, I've only ever done like maybe just shy of an hour of that activity
Mm.
because for me, and I said this before the league as well about Fossil Island, the underwater stuff. I just don't enjoy that content, and I can't smash it out in a big session. So it's never going to be something that I think is a great alternative to, as we have said with Corner Cutter, zero timing agility. I will just say on record, that's a nice thing about Corner Cutter, but it is very slow. It is very slow. And I think if you ask me any day of the week which relic I would like if I had to pick one to get removed just altogether, it would probably be Corner Cutter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can
Forage is great, and so's Dodgy Deals.
maybe I could talk about my worst then,
Go for it. Go for it.
because I feel like for me the one that I thought was probably the worst was Pocket Kingdom.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know, man. I felt like maybe it's because I was really sold on it at first, so I feel a little bit
Yeah.
like disappointed. But I've just looked at like what it actually gives, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't think it's an awful pick, but I feel like the biggest problem is that the tier of resource caps out. Like you're not getting the absolute best resource and stuff. So like I just looked at it and I'm like, why do I ever really need an infinite supply of like coal? Like, I feel like it's easy enough to get coal at this point. It's easy enough to get, like, maybe if it
Yeah.
was earlier, it'd be fine. But I just looked at all the resources and I'm like, the only thing I think it's really good at is it will give you like a lot of different seeds and it will give you like a lot of herbs. But I've also seen some
Yeah.
weird things. Like, apparently, if you don't check it every hour, you can only get a limit of like 2 Ranar seeds. And that's kind of weird.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's like just strange. And ultimately, to me, I feel like it's only picked if you just have no good seeds in your region. Because,
Mm.
like, to me, I think overgrown essentially it quadruples the effectiveness of every seed because you have a chance to save them.
Of
So it's
course,
like
yeah.
if you have
It's huge.
any amount, if you have any amount of good seeds, overgrown
Mm.
just feels like it's just better anyways. And it has that same thing I talked about corner cutter where it's just training a skill for free. And that's like to me, I
Yeah.
value that pretty heavily.
Oh,
So
100%, man. As soon as I got overgrown on my main account on Scritic, I spent about maybe like 10, 15 minutes AFKing a master farmer just to kind of like stock up on like seeds in the leprechaun seed vault. And I swear I did not touch the farming skill again for the next like 4 days. And I just hit 99 farming, just like passively while doing like Chambers of Xeric. Like every now and again, you just see like a 250k farming XP drop just pop up in the corner. And I'd be like, oh, damn, those trees are really popping, you know?
yeah, I think there's a
And like,
clip out
all
there of me
crazy.
in the middle of Zuck. I'm like tense as heck, and I get a notification you've achieved level 99 in the
I heard
farming
about
skill,
that.
and I'm like screaming. I'm like, not right now, please. I'm a little busy, and I'm like, honestly, it broke the tension for me. It was such a fun moment, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was something.
Yeah, that's great. Overgrain was great, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Pocket
Yeah,
Kingdom. Um, I just picked it for the first time on the randomized account. That's what got assigned at tier 7. So I'm interested to see because for me, when I think Pocket Kingdom, I think right. Are you going to struggle for herbs, seeds, bird nests? No one should really struggle for that, but you know what I mean. Fletching XP, and or maybe even like you don't want to go out and cut your own mahoganies or teaks. I think the mining element and the fishing element are pretty like nondescript because everyone can fish karams. And coal is, I mean, coal is coal. I feel like it loses its value very, very quickly in the game because not only is it dropped in like heaps from most PVM like bosses, but also you can kind of get around using it if you want to train smithing through other means like with gold or, whatever you end up doing. So yeah, I get that. I feel like some of the resources Pocket Kingdom gives just aren't necessary.
right. To me, like I see it as kind of like a. I've been calling it like the contingency plan relic. Like you get to tier 7 and you're like,
Yeah.
man, I
Yeah.
still don't have access to this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like your last chance to pick something
Yeah.
that will save you. But I just so far I've never been in a situation where I'm like, damn, I like desperately need logs. I feel like I've always been able
Yeah.
to figure something, and that might just be because I do like probably more planning than before. But it's just never to me. It's just never ended up being like as necessary, and I felt like I end up liking Overgrown, and I end up liking Grimoire a lot more. So I think compared to those two, overall though, I mean that I think that relic tier in general is not as like super crazy or super strong.
Mm.
It's more I think it's more just nice quality of life stuff, and like I can see the use case for Pocket Kingdom. It just feels like to me it's just not as like not as interesting, I would say. Like
Yeah.
and just not as like necessary. Like maybe if it dropped like some really good resource or something, like man, if it was giving me like, snape grasses and like wine
It
of
gives snake grass
Zamorax.
seeds, doesn't it? Didn't
It
someone
does give
told
snape
me they
grass.
give you
Yeah, it
snake
does
grass
give
seeds?
snape grass.
Yeah.
I think it does give snape grass seeds and stuff like
Mm.
that, but at that point it's like
Yeah. Then you have to grow
Overgrown
them
also
and hope
gives
they
you
don't
snape
die.
grass, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like you just need
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
place that gives you snape grass seeds, and then
Yeah.
Overgrown will like give you, thousands of them too. So in a lot of ways I just
Yeah.
felt like I feel like it needed to drop a lot more like raw supplies of higher tiers. Like, what
Yeah.
if it dropped like manta rays? Then it could actually be kind of cool. Or if it gave you a bunch of those, I don't know. Just in fact, I just feel like it just caps out at like where I should be at like level 70 on my
Also,
skills. I don't know.
the other thing that I noticed today, and I might be wrong on this, but am I right in thinking if you don't have Fremi, or maybe even if you do have Fremi, I don't know if this is the thing or this is how it works. Isn't the resource allocation in Pocket Kingdom limited to what it would have been with just base miscellanea anyway?
I think you have Royal Trouble completed. I think you
Do
do
you?
get.
If you just
Oh,
have Pocket Kingdom?
I think so. I think it treats it like Royal Trouble's completed, so you do get
Okay.
15. Yeah.
Oh, never mind then. I just
Yeah.
looked at it and I remember distributing the workers and thinking like, I'm sure I'm a bit short here. Like this just doesn't, this doesn't seem like
Maybe, yeah,
much,
maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen like I
But I
haven't
don't
used
know.
it, so that's to me it just always came down to when I get to that tier, I'm like, I don't really need
Yeah.
this. But I could
Right.
see a world where I would need it, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I'll have to let you know what I think about Pocket Kingdom another time. I really am trying to make this the league where I've tried every single relic in practice, so I can give like a proper opinion about what I think about all of them. But I feel like I've definitely at that point now where I've tried all of them, bar maybe like 3 or 4. So yeah, I think Pocket Kingdom's probably justified because a lot of people come in my chat and they're like, oh, what are you looking forward to at tier 7? And I think when it comes to farming or farming/herblore relics, Overgrown takes the cake for me every single time. I don't regret picking it on my first account. And it's so strong. Like I remember I just opened my bank, right? Check my herb tab, and I've got like 1,000 Ranars in there. And I don't even remember what it was last time I checked it. But I know that like I'm set for prayer pots for life all of a sudden. Like after one day of using that relic,
right.
And I don't know. I just feel like it solved so much more than I was than I was expecting it to solve. The only thing, if I can just say, that I didn't like about Overgrown, someone was telling me that number one, it doesn't work with Equilibrium, which is a shame. And the second thing is that it just automatically replants your seeds that are contracted. So, like, let's say you've got a white berry contract, and you've got loads of white berries in the vault. If you don't take the seeds out, it's just going to replant that. And if you get another contract, then, it's just a pain to have to like juggle around and manually intervene. That was a bit annoying. Otherwise, I thought it was a sick relic.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. For me, I feel like the equilibrium stuff, it's kind of like same thing of having like 10 million coal. Like at a certain point, it's so much experience that like I don't need.
Yeah.
Like if I had 1
Yeah.
million coal, I don't need 10 million coal. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah, that's fine.
that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, I just don't really know if I care that much about this.
Yeah.
'Cause man, I got so much. Yeah, like I got that just done super free. But
Yeah, fair. Do you have like a favorite relic combo?
favorite relic combo. Ooh, probably I need to think about this one a little bit.
That's fine. That's fine because I'll just quickly say a couple that I think are out there that a lot of people were telling me were good. So I mean, one of the main ones that someone came in and was saying like they were having loads of fun with was Dodgy Deals and Clue Arbiter. And I remember thinking like, is there any real need for both? But then they sent me a screenshot of their like clue tab, and I shit you not, it's like 500 of each clue tier just from pickpocketing, and they had like Kandarin, they had Tirynwyn, and like I can't remember what their other region was, but yeah, they had like perfect clue regions just stacked up on them. And like, don't get me wrong, I personally don't want to spend 4 days doing 2,000 clues, but I think it's cool that you can stack up like even like the elite and hard clues to that degree very, very quickly and very easily with those two kind of relics. I thought that was kind of fun. What else is quite a popular one? We've already talked about Equilibrium and Production Master. I was surprised that wouldn't be your favorite.
Well, the thing is, I feel like that's probably the coolest one for me that I kind
Yeah.
of discovered, and I definitely think that like man, you hit tier 5 at 5,000 points, and then like your fletching is insane. Your like pretty much all your production skills. Honestly, I felt bad about some of my tier. I was like, man, do I even need Wrangler anymore? I cook so fast. So that was pretty cool. I guess I'll just throw this on that like sort of adding to that. The last I guess piece there was also I really liked Friendly Forager in the mix there as well.
Yeah.
Because you could just sit there and just do your gathering skills, which honestly, like at the end of the day, most of these gathering skills, I'm doing AFK. I've probably spent 2 hours just fishing Karam ones right now, you know? It doesn't really matter that I have Wrangler or not. I could have clicked every couple of minutes. It wouldn't have been the end of the world. But like Friendly Forager, you just go and like you're just getting so much. And Equilibrium actually it takes it from like 20 experience to like 250 experience or whatever. Like you get a huge extra, you're getting like a huge extra boost from there. And then cleaning the herbs, and that's all done with Production Master anyways. Like I found that like there's like this like really cool setup with like Friendly Forager and Production Master and Equilibrium.
Was that like tier 1 Gathering Relic, tier 4 Reloaded, or back into Forager plus Equilibrium and Production Master?
No, I skipped Dodgy Deals and Animal Wrangler. I just didn't go with them. I figured I was like I just don't super need them. And I'll just do.
Oh, of course, because tier 4 is Equilibrium. Anyway,
yeah, so you had to go. I had to go Friendly Forger and then Equilibrium, and then my thieving. I had Varlamore and Wildy, so thieving felt fine, and then agility. I was just figuring, okay, I'll just do this in like. I'll just either in like the Brimhaven course or something like that. Like I'll just figure it out basically. So that was pretty like that to me. I really like Friendly Forger, especially like I know this isn't really a relic combo, but Friendly Forger paired with Varlamore for the 100% save, like. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, with the goggles from the
additive.
Yep. Yeah, man, that's huge.
So it was kind of there's like this mini game. I had to go on like a quest to like get 27 of every secondary item. You know, I'm like, all right, where are my 27 white berries from? And once I got 27, as long as I don't forget to put on those goggles, I'm set. I put them all in the reagent pouch, and my reagent, it's stocked up. Okay, it's got every secondary in there. It's really cool, actually. I have like the perfect Herbivore pouch right now.
That's why I really regret not picking Varlamore on my main, because I think that would have been so much fun. And and on the account I picked Varlamore on, I didn't even get round to doing that. I got tier 8, I had my fun on that account, and then I just left it. But on that account, I have Friendly Forager, and I was really looking forward to that. I just never needed it. But on that account, I'll tell you what I did do that I thought was a really fun relic combination, and it sounds super basic. That's because it is. But any one gathering relic, ideally Wrangler or Power Miner, plus Forager. So reloaded into Forager.
I see. Well, you could pick Forager regardless, right? You could just because Forager doesn't compete with those. Forager's tier 2, right? You actually reload. You don't have to necessarily reload into it.
Yeah. Wait, I'm trying to think what I picked at tier 4 then. Oh no, I think I had Golden God on that account. Anyway, never mind. But yeah, tier 1 like gathering relic into Forager was kind of crazy. I could see it being great with Wrangler, like you say, your AFK Karambwans for like 25 minutes, and you're just like, you filled up your herb pouch. Done. What I found was even quicker was Power Miner on Shooting Stars. Because of the way Power Miner works, you know, every time you fail, you increase the chance to succeed on your next mine. You're constantly mining that star. The XP drops are actually pretty consistent. And every XP drop, you know, or at least most of them, you're getting another herb into your sack. And because you can AFK that for quite a long time, what are stars? 20 minutes, unless it obviously depletes. Yeah, that was kind of insane. I remember just looking away for a bit and seeing that Power Miner had just filled up the herb pouch. My mining levels were shooting. I just wanted to rush towards like 85 mining to get on those rune rocks quickly. And yeah, not only did it solve that, without actively having to play that account because I was still playing on another one. But it also just solved Herblore early because you don't realize that the passive XP from picking up the herbs while you're using Forager is actually getting you over those really annoying early Herblore levels. Like I think by the time I started training Herblore, I was already 37, 38. You can make prayer potions. It's done. That was a fun combo, actually. And it's a really, really simple one because it doesn't really require you to pick anything that you wouldn't really enjoy picking anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I totally agree with that. I think Friendly Forager plus with other gathering or with I mean for me though again it was with Production Master. Like combining that was really cool because even though you have a lot, it still takes a lot to process them. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like it's the AFK versus productive debate again, isn't it? It's like, do you want to sit there and just like click an inventory of like logs or something and take a while to fletch them and chill? Or do you want to fletch a whole inventory, have to bank it quickly, and then rinse and repeat? I think if you're going for dragon,
like once I got the goggles, for example, I think I just made like 300 of every potion, and I was like, okay, I'm chilling now. I'm done. I have like 300 of everything noted up. Got the baker's note. Like I'm whatever I need, it's coming out. We're good.
Yeah.
So that was a good time.
Nice. Last thing I want to talk to you about today before we call it.
Yep.
Banker's Note versus Total Recall.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
What did you think? Because I'll be really, really, really quick with my opinion. I tried hard to defend Total Recall because I got it on my randomized account. And I honestly like spent a night off stream, off like doing videos or recording. And I spent a night thinking like, okay, what places can I use this relic to its like highest potential that Banker's Note can't compete with? And honestly, dude, I couldn't really think of any other than Barrows and like the odd place that you'd want to teleport back to quickly during a quest. I couldn't think of any.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting you on the spot to say like find me an example, but I'm saying like what did you think about the two relics? Because for me, Banker's Note is just it's too good.
I think if you're on the fence about it, you should probably pick Banker's Note in general. That being said, I find myself missing Total Recall a lot more than I find myself missing Banker's Note.
Really?
So for me, like I think in like listen, it might just be because every time I forget an item, having to go back to the bank makes me want to cry. I'm like, dude, I'm so stupid. Like I forgot my spade. All right. Like that's so annoying for me. And I just get like, I don't know, maybe that just all adds up. For me, like I think the true value for me of Banker's Note is I kind of think it can be pretty enjoyable trying to like choose your way into like early PVM content because you can just eat your way through everything. And I think that's like really cool. And in a lot of ways, I think that's probably something that I don't know. I think I might kind of always side with Banker's Note just for that because I do like trying to get into early PVM content. But at the same time, I also have that experience where I'm like, okay, I did Echo Soul, but I ate 100 sharks. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, well, like, in a lot of ways, I felt like Total Recall sort of preserved that for me, where I was still enjoying some of the Echo bosses. And I did feel like, okay, I gotta like, go in with what I have. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I think the most fun I had was doing like Echo Dagonoth Kings for the first time, getting absolutely floored, clicking recall and just sending it right away. And I was like, man, this feels so good. Every time like you just die, you come back right away. And I was never like tilted. I was having so much fun learning the new bosses. I found other like cool use cases for Total Recall. Like in general, a lot of the bosses just take longer to respawn than they do to kill. So
true.
So recalling to start the instance, coming back. I basically never needed prayer pots or food anyways, because I could kill a boss without even really dying, or like I never really had to even drink a prayer pot or eat a food for most of the bosses. I would kill them, recall to full, keep going. Especially once I got Last Stand. I mean, that was like my every now and then, okay, you die, play a little bit safer for the next 3 minutes. And if you die again, you just recall back and send it again. So it was like, I don't know. I felt like I really liked recall. I think the biggest problem that I had, and this is probably my mistake, I feel like I started to just fall in love with Production Master a little bit too much down the line. And I got to a point where I was like, oh, Production Master and Banker's Note, like this is going to be so cool. And then I'm like, I'm actually like not ever using Production Master and Banker's Note together because I'm always I feel like anytime I need to do any production skills, it's done in like 2 minutes. So like even when I'm running agility laps, for example, I'll bring in like 2,000 I'll bring in like 2,000 gems and they're done in like 5
Yeah.
laps. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, do I really even care about Banker's Note here right now? Whereas like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I have a really cool tech for Total Recall though, if you want to hear it. Hear me out on this. Have you done the Pyro Hook
Do you
yet?
think it's gonna make me feel? Yeah, I do have the Pyro Hook.
You
Yeah,
do have the
why?
Pyro Hook. Okay. I found this out after I got the Pyro Hook. You can save your Total Recall in the middle of the Brimhaven course, right?
Oh, okay.
Here's the thing.
Oh, so it just makes it quicker to get into like another thing?
When you leave the Brimhaven course, you get a 1-minute timer before you can go and click another pillar. However,
Yeah.
that minute starts when you teleport out, not when you return, which means what I would do.
No.
Here's the thing.
No.
Here's what I would do. I would tap the pillar, teleport to a bank, do a line of wood fire making logs, and by then about a minute 20 has passed, so I could recall back. The next pillar's up somewhere. I go tap it. It only takes like 10, 15 seconds or so. I tap it, teleport out, go do another line. I would do it actually.
Okay.
I actually started doing it between my Dagonoth kills. I'll go kill Dagonoths. I'll do like 3 kills each. And then I would just go tap the pillar. It takes 15 seconds, come back.
Yeah.
And like in a weird way, it's like you're it's almost like doing birdhouses, but you got to go check your pillar birdhouse every like or basically whenever you feel like it. There's no time.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. It ended up making the Pyro Hook efficiently. Like if you're actually effectively looking at the time, it's like way faster.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because like you're only spending 15
I thought you were
seconds
gonna.
in.
I thought you were gonna say some game breaking shit. Then, like you teleport out, and it thinks that you're done in the agility course, and so you can teleport back in with recall, tag the same
Not
pillar,
right away.
rinse and
Not
repeat.
right away.
That would be crazy.
No, not
God
that
damn,
crazy.
that would be crazy. That's interesting though. That's a good use for it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was probably the most interesting one that I think is like a little bit novel that most people probably haven't thought of. But for me, the biggest thing I think was just dying to a boss, instantly coming back.
That is nice.
Sending
That is
again,
nice,
and like
you just go
no
back,
hassle.
You go. Yeah, that is nice. Definitely haven't had to use that too much. A couple times, maybe. Yeah.
It depends. It really does depend on your regions too. I feel like like for like Gauntlet, who cares? For Colosseum, who cares? You're getting a full heal every time, right? Like that stuff doesn't matter as much. But then like I feel like farming things like a Raxor and Vorkath, all of those end up feeling. Vorkath might not be the best because there is a bit of a longer time to like wake up the dragon and stuff. But like a lot of the bosses just felt really nice because like the second they tap down, you're going you're basically back to start, ready to go again. And I
but there
like
were
that
a couple like tasks
cool.
that definitely would feel. I don't have Fremi with Total Recall, but there are some tasks that I feel might be a bit trickier to tick off with recall. I'll give some examples. So there was the Grotesque Guardian CAs. You know how you have to do, is it 25 kills without leaving? Like that, when you're like quite early in your combat journey anyway, is impossible to do with recall unless you're like really not taking any damage. That's really, really difficult to do. But with Banker's Note, that was trivial and done almost immediately, even at a very low combat level. Vorkath's one where you have to avoid specials 5 times in a row. That might be fine if you're like geared up properly and not taking much damage from general attacks. But otherwise, again, you have to tank through 5 kills with recall. Again, not a big deal later on when you've got proper gear. But a lot of this is stuff that I found quite challenging with recall because I'm trying to do content really early where Banker's Note would have just carried me through. You know, like I'm trying to do like my first Echo boss in like studded leather body and chaps. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, I agree with
like,
that. And I think that's
ridiculous.
definitely like, to me, I think that's like probably the biggest thing where I was like I felt like in a lot of ways I enjoyed like brute forcing the content by like trying to over and over and over again. But there was also some content where it was kind of like, man, I just feel like I'm like locked out and I could only get through this by like eating and doing a bunch of food and stuff. But like, I would say like vast majority of stuff though, it's not really a huge deal. Like even for raids, for example, like I just haven't really found. I mean, obviously like Banker's Zone can just kind of eat through everything, but like, at this point, I got to a point where like I have enough brews, I can just bring a couple brews, I'll be okay and stuff. Like even the last phase of Verzik, like I just end up eating through it because I just buy the brews from the chest anyways. So like, to me, I haven't really felt like Banker's Note is that crazy. Or well, it's definitely good for like the skilling stuff, especially with Production Master. Like that's noticeable. But even like when you're doing gathering, for example, right? Like let's say you gather a full inventory of logs and you just instantly note them. I mean, Total Recall, like you just save your spot, teleport to a bank, come back. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's saving
Yeah,
a
I
little bit of
don't.
time here and there, but it's not like I don't
Yeah.
think like I think the biggest thing is like the PVM aspect, and that's why I would say that's something you're interested in. Go for it for sure, and
Mm.
you won't regret it because it does offer something that like Total Recall
Or
just
rune
not even
crafting.
close.
I definitely
Oh,
had a
for sure,
moment
for
where I was
sure.
rune crafting with Banker's Note, and I watched all the recallers coming in and out, and I remember like typing like, "Hey boys, you need some essence," or like just winding people up.
Yeah.
like, but here I am now on this randomized account with recall, trying to make the most of it, and just personally feeling like it comes up short. Don't get me wrong, in a way, it's definitely making me earn my way through the progression at a rate that feels more natural. You know, on my 2 accounts that I've had Banker's Note, I've the Melee account, for example, I started that up 5, 6 days later. I'm tier 8. I've done everything I want to do on that account. And I honestly think that's because of Banker's Note. Just speeds you through brute forcing content, getting your drops sooner than you would get them. While as on the account that I don't have that on, it feels steadier, like slower in a way. And maybe that's more how it was intended to be played. I don't know. I'd be interested to see if Banker's Note comes back for a 3rd year in a row next year.
Yeah, I would say that the split really was insane. I was not expecting it to be
Do you know
nearly
what it
as
was in the end?
much. I think it was 94-6 or something like that. Yeah, isn't that
Wow,
ridiculous? That's
that's
crazy. Like,
crazy.
yeah, but I mean, I
Maybe
don't know.
70-30 is what I was expecting.
I was expecting that, maybe even like 80, but 94-6. I
Yeah,
was like, wow, damn. I think maybe
that's
people are just
crazy.
really, really scared of like the echo bosses and like. I mean,
Yeah,
again, with Bankers Note, like I feel bad because sometimes people ask me like how do you do Coliseum, and I'm like, okay, if you have Bankers Note and you have Last Stand, like I don't know
you
how
don't.
you
Yeah,
don't like. I don't know
you
how
don't
you.
need to ask. Yeah,
Yeah, like you should be able to get through this. Like even if you have to sit like and just hide behind a pillar and just spam eat food, like you should be fine getting through most content with this.
yeah,
And
yeah.
um, I think it's good for a lot of people, but for me, I felt like Total Recall. I just ended up kind of missing it a lot. So
Fair enough. Interesting. Um, yeah, I think that's all the things that we said we were going to go through.
mm, yep, I think that's pretty
Nice,
much it. Yeah. Um,
nice.
I would say overall though,
How long
like
did we go on for this time?
I think
Let's
2 hours.
have a look.
Not too bad. Not too bad. There's been a
Yeah,
lot to
2 hours
chat.
on the dot.
But yeah, I
Classic.
think in general, I would say that like this one has felt like the most well balanced and most like diverse in terms of like what you
Yeah.
can choose to do. Oh, actually, I have an interesting question to wrap it up. This is just a quick one, but
Mm.
like what? Because I've been wondering, what's like your favorite like quality of life change this year that they've added?
Favorite quality of life change? I
Yeah.
think it's just got to be the Megarare ticket from raids. Or just the raids changes in general. So this is gonna send me on like a whole different tangent, dude. But like, I'm just gonna summarize it quickly. A lot of people were saying to me like they should put dry protection in for everything. And like I am one of those people, and fair enough, it might be quite a snobby thing to say, but the grind is part of the game. You are playing RuneScape. The grind is part of the game. Like sometimes you go dry, sometimes you get lucky. You just got to suck it up and get on with it. That's the game. I don't believe in dry protection, and I think they could have actually lifted the dry protection off of the echo bosses a little bit more. But the reason I mention that is because linked to the raids, the mega rare ticket was an insane quality of life this year. Not having to get like 10 dupe shadows before you end up with your T-bow on your range build is really, really nice. But also just the tweaks to getting purples in hard mode Tob and Toa seem really, really nicely balanced. Sure, you said at some point that like you might get too many purples if you're doing hard mode Tob. Chambers got shafted a little bit, but generally speaking, raids felt way more accessible. This year, I think I did more raids with people that have never raided before than with people who have. And I think that's like a telling story for like people getting into it, but also being rewarded for it as well. So I would probably say all the stuff around raids is my favorite quality of life change. What
Yeah,
about yours?
I super agree. That's been my
You
favorite.
agree?
Is just the fact. It's not even like, man. There's so many components to it, but I think specifically my
Yeah.
favorite is that it's a voucher, not the
Yeah.
specific purple. So now you can
Yeah.
choose between any of the 3 raids, and I think this opened up people to go in any real direction that they want.
Yeah.
And I just think, I mean, it was such a good change. Like everybody's rating now compared to
Yeah.
last year. I remember, man, I didn't want to bring anybody along because I was like, man, you guys are screwing my rates. You know what I mean?
But it
So
sucked. But it
it
sucked
was
raiding with
so
people. Like
bad. Yeah.
last year, the meta, because you went mage as well, right?
Yep.
I don't want to raid with other people. I'm just going to send 550 solo and just like pretty much guarantee myself a purple every time. Like, why would I waste time going with other people and doing a slower raid? I know that sounds really horrible, but like this year felt rewarding to play with other people, which is what the game's about. It's like, I'm just glad that that was in there, like big time.
Yeah, it was awesome. The only other one that I think was like that I would say was like pretty cool was definitely just the echo bosses because I think it just made some of the worst
Yeah.
encounters
Yeah.
feel
Huge.
better. And I almost wish that like
Yeah.
the only thing I kind of hate sometimes is like there's a big difference between something like Grotesque Guardians where the echo one is so much faster to do that
And it's
you're
just
like
better.
yeah, it's just better to do and it feels awesome and like you're incentivized to do that. And then you have
Yeah.
other ones kind of like the DKs where I'm like, okay, I've killed like 50 times, right? And now why am I doing this boss anymore? You know, like in my head, I'm like, why
Yeah.
am I doing Echo DKs when I could just do the regular one? And
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's never going to be perfect and stuff like that. And like, but I
Yeah.
almost wish there was like almost wish the Echo ones counted as like 5 kills or something like that, just to make that
Yeah.
better. Obviously, it would be insane
Yeah.
for all of them, but and
I mean, at the very least, the Slayer XP is a bit better, isn't it?
oh
Because
yeah, I think so.
I remember doing Echo DKs as like the meta for Slayer XP over anything else that I had on my main account, uh, which was nice. But at the same time, it does feel like, right, well, I'm not getting any drops now, and actually, this fight is just a lot more intense than it needs to be. Considering I could just go in and like click on one of them and they'd die in like 3 seconds, you
Right?
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So
I think
that's probably the biggest, or I would say that's the other
yeah.
biggest thing outside of purples.
Yeah,
So.
generally speaking, if I could just say what the biggest like W is for this league, it probably would be that for the first time ever, we've got new mechanics, new bosses, new items that have never before been seen in a league. And like, I know we've both had both positive and negative things to say in this like video, I guess. And people tend to hone in on the negative. Overall, I would say that this is overwhelmingly positive, this league's experience for me. And actually, loads of people in my chat have been saying, like, hey man, like what things do you want to carry over to the regular game? And I feel like me and you right now, we could start another whole 2-hour conversation
For sure,
talking about
definitely.
this.
Yeah.
Right. So
Hey,
maybe we should
maybe in
save
a
it.
week out or something, you know,
Yeah,
we talk
maybe we
about
should save it for another time of like what would be good in Leagues 5 in the main game. If I can just mention one thing, I would say some of the Echo bosses are a fantastic example of replacements for outdated mechanics. Cow Fight Queen, I did today for the first time because
oh yeah.
just got Desert on my randomized account. And I just thought, like, this is an enjoyable, like a much more enjoyable fight than the regular Cow Fight Queen. It rewards you for movement, it rewards you for prayer switching. It doesn't just slap you silly and you have to stand there like this feels bad, man. Yeah,
I love
Cow Fight
Hispori. I think Hispori is so cool.
Hispori could
It's
replace
such a
regular
good.
Hispori.
I think it's such a well designed fight. Like obviously it's a little
Yeah.
simpler, but man, that fight has it's got a lot of cool stuff going for it, and I love.
You say it's a lot more
Hispori.
simple, but I think when you do Hispori, like I don't want to say tick perfect. That sounds sweaty as hell. But you know what I mean? Like when you are ready for the plants to come up and you go and you bop them at the right tick, then like you throw a chin into the corner
Right.
and then you go to the other end and you do the same thing and it all just like feels smooth. It's like, oh, that feels good, man. Like that is how it was intended to be done.
Yep.
And that is better than regular Hispori for sure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I agree with you. It's a huge W, and yeah, shout out to them because I feel like that's probably the easiest thing that they could have massively screwed up on and just made it not that impactful. But I think pretty much everybody I've seen has been more or less positive on that. So
yeah,
really awesome.
It's really hard, isn't it? When you get to this point in the league where everyone has experienced everything, I feel like the positivity starts like up here and everyone's super excited. And then as the league goes on, people start to be more cynical and like a little bit less excited because it's happened. And then the negative stuff starts to come out. I just really hope that if someone is watching this, a JMod or whatever, like good job, man. Like this was the best league so far, in my opinion. And I can't wait to see what League 6 has to offer.
Yep. And I think that, I guess the last thing I'll kind of say is that I think a lot of the positives and negatives, in my opinion, seem more of a it's like almost a magnifying glass on the base game as opposed to necessarily
Yeah.
the
It's not the
leagues
league.
itself,
Like, no.
It's almost like it's just some things get exponentially made worse, like having a lot of downtime at Sire, it feels a lot worse in leagues. But that's a problem in the main game too that probably needs to be addressed. And then some of the more positive things end up feeling way better, like doing 8-man TOAs and everybody gets a purple every time.
So
and
good.
Like, dude, that stuff it just feels so cool. Like, yeah, that stuff is really cool.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, anyway, man, it has been great chatting. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone who is watching has really enjoyed Leagues 5. Make sure to leave a comment on what your favorite thing is. I'm sure we'll both really enjoy reading that. And if you do want to see, me and Double Shine get together, have another chat about something else, leave us some ideas. So there's plenty that I'm sure we could chat about. But if you've got anything that you want to see, let us know. It doesn't have to end with Leagues 5. That's all I'll say.
Yep, but we still got another month of Leagues 5 anyway, so still lots
plenty I want to do.
Yeah.
Still plenty I want to do.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad we got to kind of set this up because I think it's been on the back burner for a while, and I'm glad we got to do it. So
yeah, man, it's always a pleasure talking. Thank you for the time as well.
All right,
my dude. I will catch you soon.
That's it for me. Have a good one.